Chapter 12:21. Father. A shout came from outside the demon palace, and a figure flashed in. Demon Lord Three Knights, who was pacing back and forth in the great hall, suddenly stopped. He frowned and stared at the newcomer, shouting, "What a disgrace!" Learn more from Uniquely. The newcomer was none other than his eldest son, Yiwanzong. After Three Knights led Uniquely and the others to conquer the Three Realms, the affairs of the Demon Palace were handed over to Yiwanzong. Later, Uniquely died at Wenlonfeng's hands, and Yan Zhuixing was killed by Yu Qianqiu. Yiwanzong became the successor of the Demon King, and also took over Uniquely's affairs. Yiwanzong wanted to say something but stopped himself. The matter was urgent, so he suppressed his desire to explain and reported directly. Father. Something bad has happened. The sealed passages between the immortal and demon realms seem to have been opened. Large armies from the Three Realms are attacking the demon realm. The great demon kings have sent news that there are many experts among them. They are facing defeat and have sent news to the demon palace, requesting for Father's immediate support. What? Demon Lord Three Knights turned pale with fright. His eyebrows that resembled a horned dragon furrowed deeply as he said, "How is this possible? I've already sealed all the passages, and the guards guarding the passages didn't see Yu Qianqiu or anyone suspicious enter either." He suddenly raised his head and shouted, "Just how many people do they have? Are you sure it's an army from the Three Realms? Could it be someone from the demon realm taking the opportunity to stir up trouble? How many?" This. Yiwanzong's face stiffened. "I've asked around, but I don't know how many there are. But from the information I've received, there should be a lot." "How many is a lot?" Demon King Three Knights' face darkened immediately. "Is this how you do things? Since when did you, Uniquely, report something you don't know? Just let your subordinates capture a few captives and we'll know." "Yes, yes, yes." Yiwanzong nodded repeatedly. He was already a little dizzy from the scolding. He quickly changed the topic and said, "Judging from the news from various places, those people are indeed from the Three Realms. The great demon King Red Spirit even saw the old opponents he had met in the Three Realms." Demon King Three Knights glared and shouted in disappointment, "What are you waiting for? Go and investigate." Yiwanzong hurriedly ran away. The former's face gradually revealed an anxious expression. Right now, San Yu was not worried about the number of opponents. No matter how many small fries there were, they were nothing in his eyes. What he was truly worried about was that Yu Qianqiu had also come to the Devil World. But what made him suspicious was that, logically speaking, it shouldn't be difficult for Yu Qianqiu to find out the location of the Demon Palace. With Yu Qianqiu's speed, he should have already killed his way here. He shouldn't have waited until the battle reports had been reported. Could it be that Yu Qianqiu didn't come? No matter how he thought about it, Demon Lord Three Knights felt that it was unlikely. If it weren't for Yu Qianqiu's orders, the army of the Three Realms wouldn't have dared to be so arrogant, and they wouldn't have the guts to invade the demon realm. But if that was the case, why didn't Yu Qianqiu react? Was he trying to lure him out? He couldn't think of anything right, which put him in a very difficult position. If the people of the Three Realms joined forces and attacked, with the help of the people from the Netherworld God Estate, it would be hard for the remaining 11 great demon kings to deal with them if he didn't act. If he acted, he was worried that it might be a trap set by Yu Qianqiu. Little did they know that Yu Qianqiu's goal was very simple. He disliked the fact that there were too many people who fought and fought for power all day, causing the world to be restless. He planned to let these people fight to their heart's content and satisfy their craving. Thus, he wanted Three Knights to organize an effective attack and use the demon realm as a knife to consume the cultivators of the Three Realms. At the same time, he wanted to use the knife of the Three Realms to slaughter the cultivators of the demon realm. Since the demon realm was now completely sealed, he wasn't afraid of Three Knights running away. If 3 knights dared to come out, he would resolutely attack him, but not kill him. Because once 3 knights killed, the flag of the demon realm would fall. The demon realm's morale would be slack and they wouldn't be able to organize an effective resistance. There would be a one-sided massacre. This wasn't what Yu Qianqiu wanted to see. Therefore, 3 knights could only be killed last. Of course, there was another important reason. Of course, it was good to finish the battle quickly, but the key was that Yu Qianqiu didn't want to let this army of 100 billion return to the 3 realms. At the same time, he was worried that they would become a scourge sooner or later. However, he couldn't bear to kill them himself. After all, he wasn't killing 100 billion bacteria, but 100 billion people. He didn't believe in such things in the past, but now that he had come into contact with too many supernatural beings, he was worried that he would be punished by heaven, so he could only turn a blind eye and do as he pleased. At this time, the demon realm was in a mess. The entire demon realm had entered a frenzied state of killing. Rivers of blood flowed everywhere, and bloody light, flames, and shrill screams filled the sky. The smell of blood lingered in the air for a long time and didn't dissipate. Instead, it became even more pungent. The demon realm's army couldn't stop the attack of such a huge force. As soon as they were surrounded, some people surrendered. However, the great army of the 3 realms had come to vent their anger and vengeance, and they had the upper hand in victory. In addition, Yu Qianqiu had repeatedly emphasized that the demonic path must be completely eradicated. Thus, they even killed those who surrendered, leaving no survivors. The entire army of the 3 realms was about to go crazy from the intense thrill of revenge. Troops from all directions were everywhere, constantly advancing and attacking, killing. As a result, when the heroes of the demon realm saw that surrendering would only lead to death, they naturally risked their lives. The killing became more and more tragic, and at critical moments, there were even scenes of mutual destruction. The valiance of the heroes of the demon realm immediately brought heavy losses to the armies of the 3 realms, but their own losses were even heavier. On a desolate hillside, corpses were strewn everywhere. Smoke and fire had scorched the ground black in the east and scorched it black in the west. Wherever the smoke passed, broken limbs could be seen everywhere. Gurgling blood was still flowing in the gullies. Yu Qianqiu silently stood on the hillside. His green robe was wrapped in the thick smell of blood. Where he looked, an intense battle was already nearing its end. In the distance, a black hurricane that connected heaven and earth was gradually dying down. Wu Feng flew over with a wind god's staff in hand, bowed and said, "Torture envoy. We have already eliminated the stubborn resistance of the demon realm army here, but the resistance of the demonic path is getting more and more intense. This time, we also lost millions of people." After saying that, he secretly observed Yu Qianqiu's expression. To be honest, he was very depressed. If Yu Qianqiu helped, he could completely reduce the loss to a minimum. However, he didn't even lift a finger along the way. The subtext of his report was actually to remind Yu Qianqiu, shouldn't you also help? You've worked hard. Yu Qianqiu first acknowledged his contributions, then looked at him with a gratified expression and sighed. Actually, you don't have to do everything personally. Right now, the command of the army of the 3 realms is on you alone. The reason I've been following you is because you are the command center. I have to ensure your safety. You must know that killing a demon lord 3 nights is easy, but to completely eradicate the entire demonic path requires a lot of effort. So, your burden is very heavy. As a commander, you shouldn't be running to the front lines to kill the enemy. When he said this, Wu Feng instantly felt much better. From what he said, it seemed that Yu Qianqiu didn't want to stand by and watch everyone go to their deaths. At least on the surface, he seemed to think highly of him. Torture envoy, thank you for your trouble. Wu Feng hurriedly bowed and purposely squeezed out a grateful expression. Meanwhile, Yu Qianqiu looked around and suddenly transmitted to him in a low voice. After this, me and the old guys in the Netherworld God office will go to the God realm. At that time, you'll be the only one left to take charge of the three realms. Some people in the God realm don't want to see the three realms fall into chaos again, so they want to eradicate the root of the chaos, the demonic path. I'm supporting you today for the same reason. I want you to establish your prestige in this war. After that, you'll naturally have enough prestige to restore the peace of the three realms. That way, we can go to the God realm in peace. This is the biggest reason I haven't taken action yet. The meaning of his words was too clear. I'm not taking action to give you a chance to establish your prestige. Otherwise, once I take action, I'll steal your limelight. I'm supporting you to become the boss of the three realms. These words were so explicit that Wu Feng was a bit flattered. Although he firmly believed that things wouldn't be so simple, he wasn't someone to be trifled with. Yu Qianqiu's temptation was too great. He was so excited that he couldn't control himself. There was a saying that a man's loyalty was because the weight of betrayal was too low. In other words, when the benefits offered were great enough, it would be hard for him to resist the temptation. Temptation would triumph over reason. I'll follow the arrangements of the torture envoy. Wu Feng's voice actually trembled slightly. The boss of the three realms. This was a long-cherished wish that even Demon King 3 Knights hadn't fulfilled. Under the mountain range shrouded in red blood clouds, a beam of light flashed past. Yi Wanzong returned to the demon palace. However, this time, he didn't dare to hastily barge in. He was afraid of being scolded again. He first stood at the palace gate and respectfully called out, "Father." Only when Demon King 3 Knights shouted, "Come in," did he anxiously walk in front of 3 knights and report, "Great Demon King Red Spirit has personally captured a few people for interrogation. The three realms have gathered an army of over 100 billion to attack the demon realm. They say they want to completely eradicate the demonic path." 100 billion. 3 knights sucked in a breath of cold air. Yes. Yi Wanzong secretly looked at his expression and continued, "It's been confirmed. Yu Qianqiu has also followed the army of the three realms to the demon realm. He was the one who opened the passage between the celestial realm and the demon realm, and he even sealed all the passages to the outside world." Demon King 3 Knights sank into deep thought. After a long while, he slowly said, "Then why doesn't he take action himself?" To him, Yu Qianqiu was his only formidable opponent. Yi Wanzong continued his words and said carefully, "4 of the 11 great demon kings have already fallen. The remaining 7 great demon kings are once again urgently asking Father to make a decision." Chapter 12:22. Demon King 3 Knights was silent for a while, then said in a powerful voice, "Make them give up resisting." What? Yi Wanzong paled. He couldn't believe that his father, who looked down on the world, would say something like this. He said in shock, "Father, you..." The pair of tiger eyes that were glowing with a demonic red light made him swallow back the words he was about to say. Demon King 3 Knights said decisively, "Immediately pass down the order. Have all the armies give up on meaningless resistance and quickly gather together to form a great army. Even if our demonic path is completely eradicated, it shouldn't be because of passive resistance, but through heroic slaughter." Demon King 3 Knights' glowing red eyes suddenly stared outside the palace. His disdainful aura seemed to instantly return to his body. He pointed to the distant horizon outside the palace and shouted, "There is no resistance in the words of our demonic path. In the eyes of our demonic path, the so-called Three Realms Great Army is nothing more than a flock of sheep with frightening numbers, while our demonic path army is the army of tigers and wolves. Order the 7 demon kings to immediately gather all the scattered resistance forces. I want them to condense into a sharp blade and fiercely stab into the enemy, like tigers entering a flock of sheep. Let them remember one thing. Don't get entangled with the Three Realms' great army, and don't let the enemy's numbers affect the rhythm of the attack. We will gather our superior forces to attack our enemies and leave after that. Don't fall into a stalemate. We can't win with numbers. The demon realm is still our territory. We are not as familiar with the people of the Three Realms as we are. At worst, we will just let them chase after us. If we can win, we will fight fiercely. If we can't win, we will hide or quickly move, looking for the next opportunity to attack. Yi Tiankong's eyes lit up and he said respectfully, "Father is wise. As long as we display our advantages and gradually eat away at the enemy's strength, it's not certain who will win." Yu Qianqiu hasn't made a move yet. What is he planning? Demon King Three Knights narrowed his eyes and said without any rhyme or reason. He then shook his head and said, "This isn't to make the two sides weaker. It's just to fight in a suitable way to show off the might of the demon Dao and preserve the strength of the demon realm. The true battle is between me and Yu Qianqiu. Everything else is just a prelude." As he spoke, he turned to his son and instructed, "Tell them that I'm contacting Lord Demonic God of the Immortal World. Tell everyone to stay alert." Yi Tiankong, who had received a clear answer from his father, immediately left the demon palace to pass on the message. The demon lord of Three Knights, who had just calmed down, was once again thrown into disarray by what happened next. However, due to the favorable timing and geographical location, they were unable to fight to their heart's content. They could only follow behind the 7 demon kings. When they were almost done, the 7 demon kings saw that Wu Feng was eager to win and immediately sent out 10 million troops to act as bait. As expected, the impatient Wu Feng led over 20 divine-level experts from the Netherworld Divine Manor to give chase. Meanwhile, the 7 demon kings led over 800 million elite troops to forcefully attack the 50 billion heavy troops that the Three Realms had gathered. That battle was truly a scene where bones were piled up like mountains and birds were sent flying. Blood flowed like rivers, and even the sky was dyed red. It was not an exaggeration to say that it was a tiger that had entered a flock of sheep. To think that over 800 million elites had forcefully wiped out over 30 billion people. Meanwhile, the elites led by the 7 demon kings, including the 10 million people sent out as bait, had only lost close to 50 million people. The casualty ratio was as high as 1 to 600, and the difference between the two sides was frighteningly great. Of course, the most important reason was that Wu Feng and the other divine-level experts had all been lured away, giving the 7 demon kings the chance to kill without restraint. Just the number of people that the 7 demon kings had personally killed was already an inestimable number. After Wu Feng learned that they had fallen into a trap, he hurriedly led the various divine-level experts back to provide assistance. When the 7 demon kings learned that they had returned, they immediately led the remaining 800 million elite troops to retreat, running so far that not even their shadows could be seen. When Wu Feng returned and saw the mountain of corpses and the sea of blood, he was terrified. Shock was one reason, but the most important reason was that he was worried that he would not be able to report to Yu Qianqiu. Yu Qianqiu had trusted him so much, yet he had been utterly defeated. It could be said that he did not even dare to meet Yu Qianqiu, and even had thoughts of escaping. However, the demon realm had been completely sealed off, and there was nowhere for him to run even if he wanted to. Most importantly, Yu Qianqiu had been following behind him to protect him, so he could not avoid it even if he wanted to. He could only brace himself and ask for forgiveness from Yu Qianqiu. The thick stench of blood caused the people floating in the air to not dare to breathe freely. Looking at the tragic scene below, Yu Qianqiu frowned deeply. Even though he had been mentally prepared, he had not expected it to be so tragic. The ground was full of holes and potholes, and not even a slightly higher mountain could be seen. There were corpses everywhere, and broken limbs piled up like a mountain of garbage. There was blood everywhere, and there was not even a place to stand. Even with his cultivation, he could not see the end of the tragic scene. Apart from the person who had caused this scene and the people present, Who else had seen such a tragic scene before? Wu Feng did not command properly. Please punish me, torture envoy. Wu Feng stood behind Yu Qianqiu and asked for forgiveness with trepidation. Taking a deep breath of the air filled with the thick stench of blood, forcefully diluting the almost uncontrollable killing intent in his heart. The haze in Yu Qianqiu's eyes quickly disappeared. He turned to look at Wu Feng and sighed softly. Victory and defeat are common for soldiers. This time, it was just a moment of carelessness that caused you to fall into the evil plot of the demon realm. I have always been a person who does not use those I suspect, and do not suspect those I use. I believe that you will be able to completely exterminate them in the end. I have faith in you. Thank you, torture envoy, for not killing me. Wu Feng will definitely do his best to avenge this humiliation. Wu Feng was truly moved this time. He didn't think that after causing the three realms to suffer such heavy losses, Yu Qianqiu would still have faith in him. This made him truly believe that Yu Qianqiu didn't want to harm him, but sincerely wanted to support him. Otherwise, he could have killed him in a dignified manner. However, Wu Feng was only moved for a short while. He immediately thought of rebuilding his prestige. He wanted to rely on the great art of slaying demons to become the ruler of the three realms, not because the slaying demon war had completely destroyed his hopes. So he needed to rebuild his strength. However, the 50 billion strong army had been utterly defeated by 900 million people. More than 30 billion people had died tragically. This was already enough to make everyone panic. They were all afraid of fighting the demon realm again. Their morale had fallen to rock bottom. How could it be so easy to regain their confidence? If it weren't for the fact that everyone had cut off their path of retreat, they would have scattered long ago. No one was willing to listen to Wu Feng's orders and risk their lives. In order to avoid a repeat of the same mistake, Wu Feng gathered the remaining 60 billion people together so that it would be easier to support each other. However, this immediately gave the 800 million elites led by the 7 demon kings even more space to engage in guerrilla warfare. They were practically constantly attacking and harassing the surroundings. Wu Feng, who had been waiting for an opportunity, had been patiently waiting, no longer daring to be rash. Only when he had identified the main forces of the 7 demon kings did he immediately lead the entire army to pursue and kill them. His focus was on the 7 demon kings. This immediately caused the 7 demon kings to suffer greatly. They couldn't give up on the 800 million elites and escape alone. As a result, they lost close to 100 million people. However, at the crucial moment, the 7 demon kings seized the opportunity, using their fearless courage to turn the disadvantageous situation into an advantageous one. They discovered that the morale of the army of the three realms was low, and that after some people gave chase in a perfunctory manner, they immediately ordered the majority of their troops to hide in the surroundings. Meanwhile, the 7 of them actually risked their lives, leading a portion of their troops to continue escaping as bait. They successfully attracted Wu Feng and the divine-level experts from the Netherworld Divine Manor. When Wu Feng and the group of experts gradually pulled away from the army behind them, the 300 million demonic elites lying in ambush immediately stabbed into the middle of the army from both sides like 2 sharp blades. This immediately threw the army of the 3 realms into chaos. In addition, their morale was low and they were not in the mood to fight. They also did not know how many people were launching a sneak attack on them. Therefore, they almost immediately scattered and fled for their lives first. In the end, a heavy military force of 60 billion people allowed the 300 million soldiers lying in ambush to charge into the core. After the 600 million demonic elites regrouped, they did not linger in battle. Like a sharp arrow, they charged out of the encirclement. When Wu Feng and the others heard that the army had been attacked again, they were all shocked. They thought that they had fallen into a trap again and had chased after the wrong target. Therefore, they turned around to provide reinforcements. By the time they arrived, the 600 million demonic elites would definitely not wait for them. They had already escaped. At the same time, they had also helped the 7 demon kings get rid of the danger of being pursued relentlessly. Chapter 12:23. This battle had a huge impact on the armies of the 3 realms. Actually, the number of people who had died on the spot was only about 3 billion or so. However, as they were driven away, the majority of the people had scattered. Many people did not die on the spot, but because their strength was scattered, they were eaten up by the demons. By the time Wu Feng had regrouped his people, he discovered that of the 100 billion people he had brought in, only 40 billion were left. This time, he was completely flustered. He began to doubt whether he could lead the remaining people to eradicate the remnants of the devil world. Therefore, he once again asked for forgiveness from Yu Qianqiu. At the same time, he also wanted to beg Yu Qianqiu to personally take action. However, this time, Yu Qianqiu did not give him a good look. He said bluntly, "Either you lead the army to victory, or you retreat halfway and bear the consequences of your failure. I won't support a useless piece of trash to rule over the 3 realms. Including the demon realm, it should be the 4 realms." Choosing a path of life and death, Wu Feng naturally chose to live. He could only continue to grit his teeth and prepare to decide a victor with the demon realm's army. However, the remaining 20 or so divine-level experts could not take it. They said that if he continued to play like this, they would definitely accompany him to the end. Therefore, these people pulled Wu Feng and thought of a crooked idea behind Yu Qianqiu's back. They led the remaining 40 billion soldiers to attack the demon palace, ignoring the interference of the elites led by the 7 demon kings. They wanted to force Yu Qianqiu to personally take action and have a decisive battle with Demon Lord 3 knights. Yu Qianqiu was in the army, so how could he not understand the movements of the army? He knew very well but did not stop them. In reality, he had not interfered with any of the army's decisions. Most importantly, more than half of the 100 billion soldiers had died. He did not want to play with these bastards in fear anymore. Those who were not present would not be able to experience the feeling of seeing piles of bloody corpses every day. Just thinking about it made it hard for him to eat. Yu Qianqiu discovered that whenever he saw someone, he would imagine what it would be like if they died with their intestines spilling out and their limbs missing. It had become a physiological reaction, disgusting him to no end. He also wanted to change the scene to change his mood, or else he would definitely become a pervert. Those who were used to eating meat wanted to change their taste and eat vegetables. The army of the 3 realms began to force him to abdicate. Their intentions couldn't be more obvious. This was an open and above-board battle. The 7 great demon kings had no way to stop them. They could only lead the elites of the demon world to rush back to defend the demon palace. The demon palace, which was shrouded in red blood clouds, was heavily guarded by the elite armies of the demon world. After the 7 demon kings, who had survived hundreds of battles in the demon palace, reported the situation of the battle, they stood side by side in the main hall. Their gazes were all fixed on Demon King 3 Knights, who was sitting on the blood jade throne. They all knew that he was the key to the outcome of the demon world's battle of life and death. Demon Lord 3 Knights closed his eyes and sat in silence for a long time. The moment of the decisive battle was about to arrive, but the 800 virgins for the blood sacrifice were still nowhere in sight. This made him very angry, and he was prepared to reorganize the demon realm after the decisive battle. For the dignified demon realm to not be able to gather 800 virgins, it was simply a huge joke. Father, the armies of the 3 realms are already closing in on our demon palace. Yi Wanzong's voice rang out. He once again lost his composure and directly flew into the demon palace from outside the palace. It could be seen that the situation was very urgent. The 7 demon kings, however, stood there motionlessly. They didn't feel that there was anything strange about this at all. This was to be expected. Yi Wanzong saw that the 7 demon kings were indifferent and thought that they were able to keep their composure. He couldn't help but secretly admire them. At the same time, he secretly reminded himself that his cultivation was not up to par yet. At this moment, the sound of an intense battle came from afar. Demon Lord Three Knights, who was sitting on the throne, twitched his face. He seemed to have made a very difficult decision. He slowly opened his eyes and stared at Yuanzong, saying in a low voice, "Call your two younger brothers over." Yuanzong was stunned for a moment. He responded with a "yes" and quickly left. Demon Lord Three Knights' figure flashed and directly flew out of the demon palace. He arrived at the spacious plaza outside the palace. The 7 demon kings looked at each other, then also stood outside the palace gate and looked at Demon Lord Three Knights, not knowing what he was going to do. They saw Demon Lord Three Knights standing in the center of the plaza with his eyes closed. He silently lowered his head and the scarlet cape on his shoulder gently swayed in the wind. He seemed to be praying. Suddenly, he raised his head and looked up at the sky. He opened his arms and embraced the blood-red earth. 72 black balls of light the size of fists floated out from the storage bracelet on his wrist and began to revolve above his head. Even the 7 demon kings were seeing Demon Lord Three Knights use this technique for the first time. Their eyes seemed to be saying, "Even Father can't do anything about it, how can the 3 of us solve it?" The 7 demon kings at the entrance of the demon palace also felt that it was a bit strange. They didn't know what Demon Lord Three Knights' intention was for saying these words to the 3 brothers. Demon Lord Three Knights slowly closed his eyes and said word by word, "Blood sacrifice. Other than using the blood of 800 pure virgins to express devout devotion, there is an even better method, and that is to use the direct bloodline of the demon god for the blood sacrifice. Now that things have come to this, I wonder which of you 3 brothers is willing to sacrifice your life for the great cause of the demon path left behind by your ancestors?" When these words were said, the expressions of the 7 demon kings became solemn. It turned out that the demon lord had called his 3 sons over to sacrifice his own son to protect the demon path. The 3 brothers' faces all became deathly pale. They were all terrified. They didn't think that disaster would fall from the sky and they didn't know what to do. After waiting for a while and seeing that no one answered, Demon Lord Three Knights' eyes suddenly opened. He stared at the 3 of them and roared, "While the descendants of the demon god enjoy the glory of their ancestors, they also have to bear the corresponding responsibility. Since none of you are willing to sacrifice yourselves, then let me make the choice for you." After all, the one to be sacrificed was his own son. Halfway through his harsh words, his tone became slightly gentler. "There is an order of seniority. With the eldest brother here, there is no reason for the younger brother to be sacrificed." Hearing this, Yuanzong froze on the spot, completely dumbfounded. The 2nd and 3rd brothers secretly heaved a sigh of relief, and weakly looked towards their eldest brother. Unexpectedly, Demon Lord Three Knights changed the topic and continued, "However, the eldest brother is the designated successor of the Demon Lord. He has his responsibility, so 2nd brother Yuan. I'll choose you." With a single sentence, the outcome of the matter was decided. Yuanzong's heart, which had almost stopped beating, began to gradually become lively again. The repeated experiences of life and death caused his face to become flushed as if he was drunk. For a moment, he was at a loss, and the feeling was indescribable. However, 2nd brother Yi Yuan's face turned deathly pale. He didn't think that his damnable sin was actually because he was the 2nd brother. 3rd brother Yi Tuobian lowered his head and secretly rejoiced that he was the 3rd brother. This was the first time he realized that being the 2nd brother was actually quite good. Once he made his decision, Demon Lord Three Knights no longer hesitated. Seeing the sounds of battle coming closer and closer, he decisively ordered, 7 demon kings, listen to my command. Have everyone retreat. There is no need to make unnecessary sacrifices. I'll leave the eldest and 2nd brothers to you to protect. Quickly take the 2 brothers and leave this place. I will handle the rest." "Yes." 3 of the 7 great demon kings immediately flew into the distance, while the remaining 4 flashed to the side of Big Brother and Second Brother, asking the 2 of them to follow them. Before the 2 brothers left, they did not forget to ask their father and Second Brother to take care. Second Brother Yi Yuan stood there dumbfounded. How could he listen to these polite words? Once they left, Demon Lord Three Knights' face was filled with grief and indignation. There was not even a word of farewell between father and son. He raised his hand and clawed at Yi Yuan's head. A black baleful aura quickly surged from his palm, instantly enveloping Yi Yuan. A shrill scream rang out from his palm. Chapter 12:24. Even though the pain was indescribable, Yi Yuan did not resist at all. Perhaps he knew that resistance was useless. The fiendish aura corroded his bones. His face twisted, and his flesh and bones quickly melted. His entire body became a bloody paste. Not long after the screams disappeared, Yi Yuan was completely refined, turning into a large red ball of blood. Demon Lord Three Knight held the flashing red ball of blood in one hand. His entire body trembled uncontrollably, and tears seeped out of his eyes. No one had ever seen this influential figure of the 3 realms cry. He suddenly raised the blood ball in his hand with one hand, and the scarlet cloak behind him immediately fluttered violently, as if it was about to flap its wings and fly away. The blood ball instantly divided into 72 balls of red light, shooting in all directions and drilling into the mouths of the 72 beast heads. The 72 fanged mouths suddenly swallowed and spat out blood-red light, as if they had come to life. In the distance, a large group of figures rapidly flew through the air. They were all demonic elites that had been ordered to retreat. Demon Lord Three Knight, who was surrounded by the 72 beast statues, attracted everyone's attention, but they only took a quick glance before flying away. The army led by Wu Feng did not pursue. The majestic demon palace under the blood clouds could already be faintly seen. They did not have the courage to face Demon Lord Three Knight head-on. Otherwise, with a group of god-level experts working together, they would have long since broken through the defenses of the demonic elites. Countless gazes in the army of the 3 realms looked nervously at the demon palace in the distance. That demon palace was like a stabilizing force, making everyone feel an inexplicable pressure. They had just been fighting to the death, but now that the demonic elites had retreated, everything became silent. No one dared to act rashly. Yu Qianqiu floated in the air with his arms crossed, narrowing his eyes as he stared at the majestic demon palace on the peak of a distant mountain. Wu Feng flew over from above the army and stopped in front of him. He bowed and said, "Torture envoy. The demonic army retreated very strangely just now, and Demon Lord Three Knights' lair is right in front of us. We are truly not a match for Demon Lord Three Knight. I'm afraid the torture envoy will have to personally deal with him." He had to force himself to say these words. As soon as he finished speaking, he felt a majestic aura pressing down on him from behind. Turning around, he saw a roiling demonic chi soaring into the sky from the Devil Palace, stirring up the blood-red clouds in the sky and surging over like a tidal wave. Suddenly, another ray of green light soared into the sky, instantly igniting the devilish clouds that filled the sky. Wang, the strange, oily green fire clouds roiled endlessly in the sky, dyeing the world green. Yu Qianqiu glanced at him and said, "However, if you don't put down your sword, don't blame me for being impolite. You want to burn the bridge after crossing the river." Wang Qing was truly angry, but he was pulled back by Wu Feng. Wu Feng squeezed out a smile at Yu Qianqiu. "Disciplinary envoy. If you don't act, we really are not a match for Demon Monarch Three Knights. With our cultivation, going up is no different from sending us to our deaths." "Who said I won't act?" Yu Qianqiu glanced at him and turned into a stream of light, flying toward the demon palace. Everyone looked at each other. After a short discussion, they didn't have the guts to run away. They could only bite the bullet and follow. None of them looked good. As soon as he flew above the demon palace, Yu Qianzhou's pupils shrank. The strange scene of the 72 beast statues glowing with black light and spitting out red light aroused his vigilance. Furthermore, Demon Monarch 3 Knights was standing fearlessly in the center of the square, waiting for him. He didn't dare to act rashly. His gaze constantly swept around, trying to see if there were any clues. It was best if he didn't fall for the other's trick. Demon Monarch 3 Knights saw that the demonic flames from the sky had no effect on Yu Qianzhou. Since the army of the 3 realms had already scattered in fear, he couldn't be bothered to waste his energy. With a wave of his hand, the green demonic flames that filled the sky immediately disappeared. Even the blood clouds that filled the sky quickly disappeared. The sky above the demon palace was unexpectedly clear for thousands of miles. At this time, Wu Feng and the others had also arrived. However, they all stood behind Yu Qianzhou, prepared to escape at any time. No one was willing to fight against Demon Monarch 3 Knights. Demon Monarch 3 Knights. Today is the day of your death. Yu Qianzhou suddenly laughed coldly. A golden light flashed in the air, and the skyscraping arrow circled around his body. At the same time, he was secretly observing his surroundings. This situation made him feel that something was wrong. Is that so? I want to see whose death it will be. Demon Monarch 3 Knights snorted and suddenly raised his arms to the sky. A majestic aura suddenly exploded from the mountain peak, causing the entire mountain peak to violently tremble. The 72 beast eagles roared in unison as they spat out a beam of interweaving black and red light. The 72 beams of light quickly formed a pentagonal pattern in the center of the plaza, drowning Demon King 3 Knights in it. With such a strange scene, let alone Wu Feng and the others, even Yu Qianzhou felt that something was wrong. Yu Qianzhou no longer hesitated. He didn't care whether there was a conspiracy or not. He would fight first and then think later. The skyscraping arrow rumbled, carrying the power of wind and lightning as it shot towards Demon Monarch 3 Knights in the center of the square. Bang! A pentagonal pillar of light shot into the sky, directly knocking away the skyscraping arrow. The powerful impact was unbelievably strong, causing the surrounding air to violently vibrate. Even Yu Qianzhou's figure swayed in the air, while the others were also sent staggering by the powerful air currents. Yu Qianzhou recalled the divine arrow and looked up in shock. He saw that the other end of the pillar of light had already pierced through the sky, shooting towards an unknown location. By the time the others stabilized themselves, they had already been sent 1,000 meters away. Their clothes were in a mess, but they were glad that they hadn't been directly hit by the pillar of light. Otherwise, even if they didn't die, they wouldn't be any better off. The pillar of light remained in the sky for a long time without dissipating. No one knew what Demon Monarch 3 Knights was doing. Yu Qianzhou was about to attack again when he suddenly saw the pillar of light disappear. Demon Monarch 3 Knights revealed an extremely excited expression as he stared at the sky and knelt down on one knee, his expression incomparably pious. An ancient and terrifying aura instantly descended like the might of heaven, filling the sky and earth. Yu Qianzhou felt that something was wrong. He suddenly looked up and discovered that it was just as he had expected. A pair of dreamy and illusory demonic eyes had appeared in the 9 heavens, coldly and emotionlessly looking down on all living beings. This wasn't the first time he had seen this pair of demon eyes, so he couldn't be more familiar with them. Suddenly, a crack appeared between the eyebrows of the 2 eyes. Dense lightning flashed within, but there was no sound of thunder or lightning. A blurry figure slowly floated out of the lightning, as if stepping on lightning to walk out of the void. That aura was extremely shocking. The lightning disappeared, and the crack in space instantly healed. The figure quietly floated between the eyebrows of the giant demon eyes. F***CK. It can't be that demon god knight directly descended from the god realm to the demon realm, right? Yu Qianqiu glanced at the kneeling demon monarch 3 knights, then raised his head to look at the sky. The muscles on his face fiercely twitched. In the blink of an eye, the silhouette descended upon the demon palace at the speed of light. The silhouette was illusory like a dream, and it was impossible to see the true appearance of the newcomer. However, he could vaguely sense that the newcomer was wrapped in a large black waistcoat. At first, Yu Qianqiu thought that it was because he was too far away, but now he realized that it was indeed a figure. It didn't seem like a real person. Looking at the sky again, the pair of giant demon eyes was still there. Yu Qianqiu could clearly feel that the pair of eyes was staring at him, but then it silently disappeared into the void. Even Wu Feng's family, as well as the 20 god-level experts of the Netherworld Divine Manor, fell into a daze the moment the 3 knights' demon eyes opened. In other words, the opponent had not even made a move. With just a glance, he had subdued everyone. Was Yan Zhuixing. But this, the demon Tian was that it had not yet, the god Tian, and Yu, Yan Xing of Qian. Yan heaven, Tian, that the one Yan, Tian, Yan Qin, of the god, wherever the golden light shone, the blood sea was annihilated. Countless blood vines that were binding Yu Qianqiu crumbled and disappeared. Yu Qianqiu, who was floating in the air, shook his head. His eyes regained their clarity and he shouted, "Break!" Bang! The divine arrow exploded into thousands of rays of golden light. The black light that had broken through the seal scattered in all directions and circled around him. At the same time, Yu Qianqiu released a ball of samadhi true fire to protect his body. He pointed at the opponent and said sternly, "You are not San Yi." Demon Monarch 3 knights put down his hand, and the demonic red light in his eyes disappeared. His aura of looking down on the world was completely revealed, far surpassing the aura of conquering the world from 3 knights. It was as if he was the master of this world. San Yi looked at him coldly and said, "So the star bead has such a use. Does the samadhi true fire also come from the star bead?" Although the voice was still San Yi's, the tone was completely different. Yu Qianqiu quickly looked behind him. From the expressions of Wu Feng and the others, he could see that they had been controlled by the demon eye. His eyes narrowed as he turned back and shouted, "You are demon god Yi. To be able to make me take action time and again, you can be considered a capable person. I can give you a chance." Demon Monarch 3 knights said indifferently, "Submit to my demonic path and I can spare your life." These words were undoubtedly admitting his identity. Facing such a terrifying person like the demon god who was threatening him, it would be a lie if Yu Qianqiu said he was not afraid. His expression twitched as he gritted his teeth and said, "You are the #1 expert in the god realm. You actually went against the rules of the god realm and came to the lower realm. Aren't you afraid of being punished by the Tao?" He was forcing himself to use the Tao to threaten the other party. Punishment. If there was someone who dared to punish me, he would have done so long ago. There would be no need to wait until today. Demon Monarch 3 knights' tone revealed a trace of disdain as he said, "The so-called rules, if the person who made them cannot abide by them, how can others abide by them? That dragon that is running around in the lower realm, doesn't it come from the god realm?" The dragon that the other party was referring to, Yu Qianqiu naturally understood that it was Hong Tai Long. But what made Yu Qianqiu feel strange was that with the demon god's abilities, it shouldn't be difficult for him to subdue him. Why did he waste his breath to persuade him to surrender? It didn't make sense. His instincts told him that there must be some inside story that he did not know about. He calmed down in a second. It was good that the other party was not in a hurry to kill him. Otherwise, he would have nowhere to run. He raised his eyebrows and said, "Demon God. You are the dignified #1 expert in the god realm, but you came all the way from the god realm to attack a small figure like me. Isn't that beneath your status?" Demon Monarch 3 Knights said without any emotions, "You think too highly of yourself. If I wanted to kill you, it would be as easy as snapping a finger. I don't even need to use my main body to come to the lower realm. This is just a clone of my main body. I can create millions of clones like this at any time. As long as you are willing to surrender to me, you will enjoy endless benefits." Yu Qianqiu was secretly shocked. He didn't expect that a clone of the other party would be so much stronger than his cultivation of a late great god. The power of the main body could be imagined. But how could the famous demon god be so patient? Why did the other party insist on him surrendering to him? There should be many experts in the god realm that were stronger than him. There must be something fishy going on here. Could it be that he was bluffing? In reality, this clone could only scare people. Yu Qianqiu's eyes turned, and he suddenly shouted, F***CKU. 10,000 divine swords poured down like a torrential rain, shooting toward Devil Monarch 3 Knights. Demon Monarch 3 Knights' gaze suddenly became cold. He didn't expect the other party to know his identity and still dare to take the initiative to attack. The other party's guts were boundless. He teleported and disappeared on the spot. Before Yu Qianqiu could react, his vision blurred. He felt an intense pain in his abdomen. His body felt like it was about to explode. His eyeballs almost popped out. The true Samadhi fire protecting his body dissipated. He couldn't help but spit out a mouthful of blood. He didn't even see how the other party attacked. He fell to the ground like a meteor. With a boom, he smashed a deep pit in the ground. Smoke and dust filled the air. Only then did Demon Monarch 3 Knights' figure appear in the air. It was easy to imagine how fast he was. With a backhand slap behind him, the 10,000 divine swords that had just been shot out were immediately thrown into a mess and stabbed into the square outside the demon palace. At this moment, he stared coldly at the person struggling in the deep pit. If he didn't have any misgivings, he would have crushed Yu Qianqiu into dust. Even so, Yu Qianqiu's injuries weren't light. He struggled in the deep pit for a long time but couldn't get up. He spat out mouthfuls of blood, giving people the feeling that he was not far from death. "You have guts. You actually dare to attack me." Demon Monarch 3 Knights looked down and said coldly, "Submit to me and I'll spare your life." Damn it. Misjudgment. Yu Qianqiu didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He spat out another mouthful of blood. Finally, he could breathe normally again. The moment he opened his mouth, he cursed, "I'll submit to your mother." As he cursed, he disappeared. Of course, he knew the principle of running if he couldn't win. Demon King 3 Knights narrowed his eyes. He was not at all surprised by this. He turned back to look at the 10,000 swords stabbed into the ground. He stretched out 2 fingers and pressed them against his forehead. Suddenly, black light shone from his body, and all the light gathered at his forehead. A blood-red cloud pattern floated between his eyebrows. At this moment, Demon Monarch 3 Knights' body trembled. He looked at his hands and touched the blood-red cloud pattern on his forehead. His face was filled with surprise. He was the real Demon Monarch 3 Knights now. Just now, he was protected by the demon god's clone. Although he knew what had happened, he couldn't control his body. He originally thought that after the crisis was resolved, the demon god's avatar would leave, but what he didn't expect was that the demon god actually sealed this avatar in his body so that he could use it at any time at a critical moment. How could he not be happy? Demon Monarch 3 Knights looked around. When he saw the 20 people being controlled, he couldn't help but laugh wildly. Then, he charged over and extracted their natal primordial spirits to control them. In Utopia's misty palace, a bloody figure appeared in the sky and fell to the ground like a dead pig. Yu Qianqiu struggled a few times but couldn't get up. His body felt like it was falling apart. He could only lie on the ground and weakly shout, "Someone, save me." However, it seemed like only he could hear his voice. Coincidentally, Hong Tai Long was bored out of his mind and came out for a stroll with his hands behind his back. When he saw a bloody person on the ground, he walked over and shook his head as he muttered, "Who is so unlucky to be bullied by that brat to this extent and even be captured?" When he got closer, he raised his leg and kicked the person, saying, "He's not dead, right? Hong Tai Long. I'm kicking your ancestor. It's me." Yu Qianqiu cursed as he lay on the ground. Hong Tai Long's ears pricked up. Suddenly, he exclaimed and reacted. He immediately squatted down and flipped the person over. When he saw that it really was Yu Qianqiu, he exclaimed in shock, "Yu Qianqiu. Who injured you like this?" Yu Qianqiu rolled his eyes and said, "Be gentler. It hurts." Hong Tai Long nodded and said, "For you to be able to escape with your life from the fiend god's hands, it's also considered good fortune. But, even if we can invite your master probably isn't the fiend god's match either. It shouldn't be a problem." An ugly smile appeared on Yu Qianqiu's bloodied face as he said, "It's not the fiend god himself, but a wisp of the fiend god's avatar that descended to the lower realm. I reckon that old fellow can deal with it. You guys don't have to worry about me. I'll rest for a day, and after I recover my strength, I'll go to the barrier of the heavens to look for the old fellow." Although he said that, the group of people still refused to leave. From time to time, they would check on his injuries. When they realized that he was really recovering at a rapid pace, they were both surprised and relieved. The next day, when Yu Qianqiu woke up in a daze, he could already move his limbs, but he still couldn't get off the bed. However, he couldn't wait to take revenge. Actually, there was a reason. He was afraid that his injuries would recover too quickly, and he wouldn't be able to fool Bai Changchun to help him snatch back the divine arrow. Therefore, Shen Yu, who was in charge of transportation, was called over again. Hong Tai Long had to work a little harder as he carried Yu Qianqiu on his back. After greeting everyone, the three of them disappeared from Ethereal Palace. Once they reached the Netherworld River, Shen Yu knew what to do without any instructions. He obediently jumped into the Netherworld River and revealed his original form. He opened his huge clamshell, carried the two of them, and rapidly swam against the current. Once they stepped into the barrier of the heavens, Hong Tai Long carried Yu Qianqiu and jumped ashore. Then, Shen Yu was sent back to Utopia. Under Yu Qianqiu's signal, Hong Tai Long immediately carried him and flew back to the old place. Under the huge moon, Hong Tai Long carried Yu Qianqiu on his back as he stood in front of the Hengduan mountain cliff in a daze. In the barrier of the heavens ahead, Bai Changchun, who was dressed in a green robe, was still floating there. However, there were 7 identical Bai Changchun standing there with their eyes closed. In the silence, there were many golden arcs of light going in and out of the 7 bodies, adding a sense of mystery to the pitch-black barrier of the heavens. 3 incarnations are early-stage ancient gods, 6 incarnations are mid-stage ancient gods. Doesn't that mean that 7 incarnations have already stepped into the doorstep of late-stage ancient gods, and 2 more incarnations will reach the peak of late-stage ancient gods? Once all 10 incarnations are gathered, he will reach the Great Perfection realm. Hong Tai Long had a look of disbelief on his face as he muttered to himself, "Is this for real? At this rate, the gods of the divine world have all lived in vain. This is way too fast." Yu Qianqiu was lying on Hong Tai Long's back, but his eyes were filled with little stars. He chuckled and said, "It's good that it's fast, it's good that it's fast. When the time comes, the old man will have no opponents and will definitely look for Mo Shin to fight one-on-one. Then, we can send the old man to the divine world from the Netherworld Divine Palace. If the old man kills Mo Shin, hee, then I will be living a happy life." Unimaginable. Hong Tai Long shook his head. Then, as if he suddenly thought of something, he asked, "When is your master coming out? Don't tell me we have to keep waiting here." Yu Qianqiu looked around and asked curiously, "Where are the 3 fellows guarding this place?" Hong Tailong said angrily, "You're asking me, but who should I ask? Put me down. Just let me lie on the ground." Yu Qianqiu patted his shoulder, and Hong Tailong obeyed and placed him on the ground. Yu Qianqiu then casually pulled out a blanket and even took 2 backrests and threw them on the ground. He said, "Help me lay them down." The corner of Hong Tailong's mouth twitched. "Are you really planning to wait here for a long time?" Although he said that, he still helped him make the bed and placed him on the blanket. Yu Qianqiu adjusted his posture and leaned comfortably on the back of the blanket. He looked at the huge moon in the sky and then at the surroundings. He frowned and said, "It's just that the environment is a little bad, but I'll make do with it." He turned back and said, "Use your identity as the Dragon Clan's envoy to find out some information. I'll wait here for my master to come out. Don't worry about my safety. Although I can't make a move now, I can still hide in Utopia at any time. Damn you, I'm worried about my safety. We've done so many wicked things here, and you've been hiding in the dark. I've always been the one showing up in the open. If the matter of the tomb being robbed is exposed, I'll be the first person they suspect. Of course, you don't have to be afraid." Hong Tailong snorted and turned into a stream of light. Yu Qianqiu was startled. However, he reckoned that Hong Tailong wouldn't be in any danger with his identity as the Dragon Clan's envoy. He then turned over and lay on his side. He looked at Bai Chongqun and the barrier of heavens. After a long time, he actually felt drowsy. More than 10 days later, Hong Tailong hurriedly returned. Yu Qianqiu, who was asleep, sat up abruptly when he heard the commotion. He shouted, "Who is it?" With his current cultivation, he could be considered an expert in the mausoleum of the god of sin. Someone like Hong Tailong couldn't escape his ears at all. "It's me," Hong Tailong greeted. Suddenly, he was startled. He sized him up and said, "You moved so quickly. How did your injuries heal so quickly? Don't mention it." Yu Qianqiu heaved a sigh of relief. He looked at Bai Chongqun and the barrier of heavens and waved his hand helplessly. He kept his things and waved his hand at the glaring Hong Tailong. "We can't keep waiting like this. Let's go and take a look at the wind god's tomb first. We'll talk after we return." Chapter 12:27. Hong Tailong loved to hear this. He quickly got up and excitedly rubbed his fists and said, "You should have done this long ago." The 2 fellows, whose eyes had turned green from looking at the moon every day, almost had the urge to howl at the moon. After getting up, they subconsciously shook their heads together to shake the shadow of the moon out of their minds. Their movements were so coordinated that they patted their butts and slipped away together. "Shouldn't you change your tattered clothes? Anyway, you can no longer win your master's sympathy. There's no need to pretend to be pitiful, right?" Sigh. It takes 3 years to get new, 3 years to get old, and another 3 years to sew and mend. I'm used to being thrifty. Forget it. I can't be too shabby when I'm outside. It doesn't matter if I lose my face. Anyway, no one knows me. The key is to lose the face of the Dragon Clan's emissary. I'm sorry to the coiling dragon god. What does it have to do with my Dragon Clan? Don't change it for the rest of your life if you have the guts. I've always been respectful to the dead. I've long admired Senior Wind God's great name. I'm going there with the mentality of a pilgrimage. It's too sloppy. I'd better change it. The dead are the most important. I can't be disrespectful to the dead. Don't give me that. You say one thing but think another. You've done all the good things and all the bad things. Do you think I don't know what you're thinking? You're afraid that people will see that you're a thief and feel guilty, right? Hong Tai Long. What kind of good person do you think you are? You've already done your homework, and you're still inciting me to do bad things. Why are you pretending to be a gentleman now? Damn it. If you make me angry, I'll make you stay here and guard the tomb for the rest of your life. What are you looking at? Try being long-winded again. I can't beat the demon god, but can't I beat you? Ah. Ruthless villain, you're ruthless. Along the way, according to Hong Tai Long, the wind god was the person with the highest cultivation in the divine mausoleum after his death. The place where he was buried was also the highest place in the divine mausoleum. The so-called highest place was the place closest to the moon in the sky. It was the highest mountain in the mausoleum of the god of sin. When the two of them arrived at the highest mountain range, they realized that the wind god's tomb wasn't the only one here. There were tombs made of blood jade and red crystals all over the mountains. Under the gorgeous moonlight, the tombs glowed with a dark red light. From afar, the entire mountain range looked like a monster with eyes all over its body. At the highest peak, there was a tomb that was several sizes larger. The more graves there were, the more people guarding the graves. It would be difficult for them to get close to the graves without being discovered. Thus, the two of them hid in a remote area and discussed the matter. What should we do? If you use the Earth's secret art to dig through here, can you guarantee that you will reach it accurately? Hong Tai Long's expression was very solemn. Yu Qianqiu stared at the peak of the mountain in the distance and muttered, "It's not a problem to arrive precisely, but it's unavoidable that we have to check our position during the process. I'm afraid that we'll be discovered by someone. That won't do. Once the news of me robbing the tomb spreads out, the other tomb guards will definitely check the tombs they are guarding. If they discover that as long as I've been to a place, the tombs have been robbed, there's no way to explain it. For the dragon race to do such a thing, it's too damaging to the dragon race's dignity." Hong Tai Long shook his head firmly, insisting that Yu Qianqiu think of a more reliable method. It's easy to not be discovered. Actually, it's still the old method that's more reliable. It's just that this time, we're targeting more people. Use your identity as the dragon race's envoy to gather all the tomb guards in this mountain range. Just say that you're investigating the details of the murder of the wind god's tomb guards, Tianfeng and Difeng. Hearing this, Hong Tai Long bared his teeth. However, when he saw Yu Qianqiu's expression of, "I'll listen to you if you have a better idea," he placed his hands on his waist and spun around a few times. Then, he shook his red-haired head and faced Yu Qianqiu. He made up his mind and said, "This is the last time. Don't do it again." After saying this, he flew towards the mountain range ahead. Yu Qianqiu chuckled and sat down to wait. Soon, he saw streams of light flying towards a corner of the mountain range. After waiting for a while longer, Hong Tai Long's voice transmission came. "It's about time. We can make our move now." The other party's tone was like that of a thief. However, Yu Qianqiu became spirited. He carefully determined the location of the main peak of the mountain range. Then, as if he was sitting on an elevator, he directly sank into the ground and disappeared. Underground, it was as if he was moving forward in a bubble. Everywhere he went, the mud and rocks parted for him. Along the way, he poked his head out from the ground halfway up the mountain. He stealthily determined the location again and continued diving down. What a person! Now that he had reached this level, his sneaky style still hadn't changed. After reaching the center of the main peak, he directly ascended. Not long later, there was a layer of blood jade and red crystals blocking his way. Without a second word, he broke through the layer and jumped up. The area of the tomb was obviously bigger than the tombs he had raided before. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that it was as big as a hole. However, this wasn't what he was concerned about. He was only concerned about the wind god's corpse. However, the bed of blood jade and red crystals in the middle was empty. Where did the corpse go? Yu Qianqiu was puzzled. He looked around and was shocked when he raised his head to look at the dome above. He saw an almost naked, well-built man floating above. Strands of red light densely covered his body. It was extremely strange. The scariest thing was that the other party was actually looking at him with his eyes wide open. Damn it! What kind of joke was this? Could it be that the wind god had already been resurrected? Yu Qianqiu's heart was beating like a drum. Then, he comforted himself. Maybe the eyes of the corpse were always open. It was just like how people sleep with their eyes open. There was a saying that went, "Die with everlasting regret." He coughed and pretended not to see the corpse. With his hands behind his back, he acted like nothing had happened. It seemed like he had entered this place by mistake. He slowly wandered to the corner. Suddenly, he raised his head and heaved a sigh of relief. The corpse was still staring in one direction without moving. Damn it! I was almost scared to death. That's strange. Why is the corpse floating? Halfway through his monologue, the muscles on Yu Qianqiu's face began to twitch. He saw the corpse's eyeballs slowly moving, and its head slowly tilted to the side. That gaze seemed to see everything as rotten, and there was no emotion in it. It was not cold, but there was no expression. It was like looking at a blank piece of paper. It was as simple as that. Then, the floating body slowly descended and stood barefoot on the stone bed of blood jade and red crystals. Your senior wind god. Yu Qianqiu coughed and bowed respectfully. He had already communicated with Utopia and was prepared to escape at any time. This was because he could not see through the other party's cultivation with his cultivation of a late-stage great god. It was not difficult for him to determine who the other party was. He was just having a headache. What about Hong Tai-long, who had gathered a group of tomb guards for a meeting after he escaped? It was another matter whether he would be beaten to death if he left that guy behind. The key was that only that guy knew how to set up the passageway from the netherworld divine manor to the divine realm. I'm Wings of Wind God. Who are you? That person seemed to have not spoken for a long time. His lips moved slightly, letting out a hoarse and rough voice. His eyes were still looking at him without any expression, as if he was a jade statue that had been buried with him. Yu Qianqiu cupped his fists in a graceful manner and said, Junior Yu Qianqiu has long admired Senior Wind God's great name. I've specially come to pay a visit. His face was filled with a harmless smile, but his mind was still thinking about how to rescue Hong Tai-long while ensuring his own safety. Yu Qianqiu. The hoarse voice had a hint of taste. He shook his head slightly, as if he could not remember this person. Then, he sighed softly in a hoarse voice and said, Have Tianfeng and Diffing been killed by someone? Ah. Yu Qianqiu was stunned. His mind was filled with doubts. Since the wind god had been resurrected, why was he still staying here instead of going out? With his abilities, how could he sit back and watch as his two subordinates were killed by that old guy? Especially when he asked this question, it was even more confusing. Senior, don't you know? Yu Qianqiu tried to ask. The strong and almost naked wind god stood on the stone bed like a stone statue and said slowly in a hoarse voice, The two of them are the entities cultivated by the fusion of the heavenly soul and the earthly soul of my 3 physical souls and 7 physical souls with the wind spirit. Although my 7 physical souls have been destroyed, my life soul is still attached to my broken body. After I woke up, I couldn't sense the two of them. I think they are gone. Senior, you just resurrected not long ago. Yu Qianqiu asked in surprise, but the other party did not answer. Obviously, it was a tacit agreement. However, it also solved the question that puzzled Yu Qianqiu just now. Then, he cupped his fists and said regretfully, Senior, to tell you the truth, Tianfeng and Diffing were indeed killed by an expert who suddenly appeared. This should have happened not long before you woke up. An expert who suddenly appeared. The wind god chuckled in a hoarse and sad voice. The mausoleum of the God of God has a boundary of heaven personally set up by Tao. If he did not secretly push things, who could break through his boundary of heaven and break in? Even the great god Yi or the war god Rui Xingxing could not break in. It is said that the Great Way is ruthless. Tao. You are ruthless. So cruel. You want to draw a prison and imprison my lonely soul. As long as I don't follow your Great Way, you will make it so that I can never be resurrected. Yu Qianqiu frowned. He knew that there were two people who could enter and exit the boundary of heaven at will. If it was said that Taishu Xian was released by the mysterious Tao, he might believe it. As for Bai Changchun and Xinyu, they couldn't be released by Tao, right? Senior Wind God, didn't I see that you have resurrected? Yu Qianqiu asked suspiciously. Resurrected? My physical body may have resurrected, but this lonely soul of mine is neither yin nor yang. It is just that the remnant of my divine sense is not extinguished. As long as I walk out of this cage of blood jade and red crystals and come into contact with any yin and yang aura, I will immediately turn into ashes. The so-called resurrection is just a joke. In the game rules of Tao, the dead can never be resurrected. The only way is to reincarnate. Only by giving up everything in the previous life can one be reborn. Chapter 12:28. These words shocked Yu Qianqiu. He subconsciously asked, could it be that the legend of resurrection in this blood jade red crystal tomb is fake? It couldn't be more real. But after resurrection, I can't even step out of this tomb. What's the difference between being alive and being dead? Wind God let out a self-deprecating chuckle in a hoarse voice. He looked around the tomb listlessly. I realized this a long time ago. That's why I separated the heaven soul and earth soul of the 3 souls and 7 spirits to create the 2 messengers, heaven wind and earth wind. This was so that if an accident happened in the future, I could merge with them after resurrection. After the 3 souls merged, even if my cultivation couldn't return to its peak, I could at least walk freely in this boundary formation of heavens. I thought this was done secretly, but I didn't expect that before I resurrected, heaven wind and earth wind met with an accident. It seems that Tao must have known about this long ago. Yu Qianqiu laughed in his heart. He knew Bai Changchun too well. How could he be ordered to plot against others? No matter how powerful Tao was, old Bai wouldn't be a lackey of Tao. It was only because heaven wind and earth wind had the highest cultivation in the mausoleum of the god of sin that they were worth challenging. What did it have to do with Tao? Wind God thought too much. Senior Wind God, I've heard of Tao for a long time. I wonder who this Tao is, and how high is his cultivation. How can he intimidate the gods of heaven and earth? Yu Qianqiu asked curiously. I've never seen the true face of Tao. I can vaguely feel his existence when he appears, but it's illusory. As for how high his cultivation is, no one has seen him fight, so there's no way to judge. But the pressure and momentum when he appears is indeed very powerful. Even the great god Yi and Coiling Dragon are willing to listen to his orders. It can be seen that his cultivation must be terrifyingly high, and no one dares to test his depth. Speaking of this, he seemed to think of something. He suddenly stared at Yu Qianqiu. You haven't told me who you are, and why you broke into my tomb. You seem to have used the earth spirit technique when you came in just now. A faint green light appeared in her eyes as she examined him. Yu Qianqiu was speechless. He knew that sometimes speaking the truth was very hurtful. It was just like meeting a woman. Regardless of whether she was beautiful or not, a casual compliment would make the other party happy. Conversely, it would only make the other party angry. Therefore, he could never tell the other party that he was here to steal his corpse. He coughed and said, "I am a tomb keeper in the tomb of the god of sin." "How is this possible?" the wind god suddenly exclaimed and interrupted him. His eyes widened as if he had seen something unbelievable. Yu Qianzhou's heart skipped a beat. Could it be that the other party was so mysterious that he knew I was lying before I even finished speaking? He was ready to leave, but the next words of the wind god stunned him again. Wood spirit aura, fire spirit aura, metal spirit aura, earth spirit aura. You actually swallowed the 4 spirits. Could it be that you have practiced these 4 spirit techniques at the same time? He himself had practiced the wind walking technique. After swallowing the wind spirit, he achieved success in practicing it and became the wind god. In addition, his cultivation was high, so he immediately found the aura of the 4 spirits after a careful inspection. Should he go or not? After hesitating for a while, Yu Qianzhou decided to take a look. After all, it was not common to meet such an ancient god. Maybe there would be some major discoveries. His eyes flashed and he replied weakly, "Actually, I have practiced the 5 attributes of water, fire, metal, wood, and earth. It's just that I haven't found the trace of the water spirit in this boundary formation of all heavens, so it's a little regretful." "What?" the wind god exclaimed. His face, which had never been shocked, finally showed an incomparable expression. "You have practiced Goddess Nua's 5 elements great method." "How do you know Goddess Nua's 5 elements great method? What is your relationship with Goddess Nua? Who is Goddess Nua?" Yu Qianzhou was shocked. It seemed that Hong Tailong's words were true. However, he still had a puzzled look on his face. He scratched his head and said, "I comprehended this 5 elements great method from the transformation of the stars. I didn't learn it from anyone." "Senior, did you see wrongly? Apart from Goddess Nua's 5 elements great method, which can seize the fortune of the universe, it's impossible for anyone to have 5 attributes at the same time without conflict. Who are you? What is your relationship with Tao?" the wind god bellowed angrily. He spread his 5 claws, and a whirlwind rose in the tomb, directly sucking Yu Qianzhou over. With Yu Qianzhou's cultivation, he didn't even have the slightest ability to resist. However, just as his palm was about to grab hold of Yu Qianzhou, the flustered Yu Qianzhou suddenly disappeared in front of his eyes. The wind god was very shocked. He couldn't believe that a late-stage great god cultivator could actually slip away from his eyes without a sound when he had locked onto him. After a long time, he cried out involuntarily, "The star bead of Tao. Ah! Tao, you've gone too far. I've already fallen to such a state, and you still want to send someone to toy with me." A sorrowful and angry shout reverberated in the mountain range illuminated by the bright moonlight, causing the entire mountain range to shake violently. On the tomb mountain, a group of tomb guards were gathered in a corner of the mountain range, denouncing Bai Changchun's evil deeds to the dragon envoy. Hong Tailong nodded and listened with a solemn expression. From time to time, he would even find a topic to talk about, trying his best to stall for time. On the surface, he looked calm, but his eyes kept glancing at the main peak of the mountain range. He thought to himself, "What the hell is this brat doing? Why isn't he done yet? Did something happen to him?" His good intentions didn't come true, but his bad intentions came true. Suddenly, a sorrowful and angry shout rang out, causing him to shudder in fear. As the earth quaked and the mountains shook, all the tomb guards looked at the main peak of the mountain range in horror. Suddenly, someone exclaimed, "The wind god has resurrected, the wind god has resurrected." As soon as this was said, everyone flew towards the main peak of the mountain range with indescribable joy. The wind god has resurrected. Before Hong Tailong could wrap his head around the situation, he suddenly realized that the huge tomb on the main peak of the mountain range was slowly being uprooted from the inlaid mountain and rising into the sky. His forehead instantly broke out in a cold sweat. Putting aside Yu Qianzhou's life and death, just the fact that the wind god was killed by the coiling dragon old ancestor meant that the wind god would not let him off easily the moment he saw him, the dragon envoy. Wiping off his cold sweat, Hong Tailong immediately turned into a beam of light and fled. As he fled, he even gritted his teeth and smiled bitterly as he muttered to himself, "Yu Qianzhou, it's not that I'm not loyal enough to abandon you and run away alone. But you have the Star Pearl's teleportation ability, so escaping shouldn't be a problem. You have to run away. If you die in the hands of the wind god, I won't be able to leave this place." Yu Qianzhou, who had fled back to Utopia, patted his chest for a while with lingering fear. He felt that it was a close shave. When the wind god's claw came, he could not move at all. His divine sense was also imprisoned and could not move. If he had not been vigilant and had his divine sense hooked up with Utopia long ago, he would have escaped with just a thought. Otherwise, he would have fallen into the hands of the wind god. Remembering that Hong Tailong was still in the mausoleum of the god of sin, Yu Qianzhou hurriedly barged into the ethereal palace. Ignoring the questions of others, he found Shen Yu and dragged him to the isolation zone between the endless dark cliff and the celestial boundary. Shen Yu was already used to it and naturally knew what he had to do. He jumped into the Netherworld River and transformed into a mussel, carrying Yu Qianzhou against the current. As soon as he stepped into the territory of the mausoleum of the god of sin, Yu Qianzhou immediately threw Shen Yu back to Utopia and flew toward the mountain where the wind god was buried. Chapter 1229. With this deep summon, the ground beneath the cliff started to crack. 90 figures shot out rapidly from the ground and landed on the cliff. Yu Qianzhou retracted his palm, and the true samadhi fire that was lingering around his body also retracted into his body. He slowly turned around to look at them. The 80 Earth Soul Mystic Soldiers were like stone giants, the 10 Golden Soul Mystic Soldiers were like armored generals, and the 10 Fire Soul Mystic Soldiers were like demons from hell. There was a total of 100 of them. There were 16 late-stage great gods, 30 mid-stage great gods, and 54 early-stage great gods. The bodies of the Golden Soul Mystic Soldiers were clearly much thinner than the other two types. It was clear that the metal elements beneath the cliff were not enough for them to absorb. Yu Qianzhou waved his hand and pointed in the direction of Utopia's military camp. The 10 Golden Soul Mystic Soldiers shot into the sky rapidly and started to divide up the metal body that was left behind when they devoured Jin Tai. Hong Tailong, who was frowning and in deep thought, had long been startled awake by such a huge scene. He opened his mouth and sized up the large pile of mystic soldiers, crying out, "Yu Qianzhou, what are you trying to do by creating such a huge scene?" "What? What do you think I'm trying to do?" Yu Qianzhou let out a F***ck and waved his hand in high spirits. "I'm going to the demon realm to fight Demon Lord 3 Knights. Damn it. My heaven-splitting arrow is still in his hands. If I don't snatch it back, I'll be in pain even in my dreams. Now that I can't find anyone to help me, I can only do it myself. If I can't fight with brute force, I'll try to outsmart him." Hong Tailong pointed at the large group of mystic soldiers and rolled his eyes. "You call this outsmart him? I think you're saying it the other way around. We're going to fight with brute force, and we're going to risk our lives, right? It doesn't matter if it's the other way around or not. We're going to fight anyway. If we can't win, we'll just run. You have to consider this carefully. Demon Lord 3 Knights has the support of Demon Lord 3 Knights. It's useless no matter how many mystic soldiers you bring. I'll say this first. I'm not going to take that risk with you. Demon Lord 3 Knights is much more terrifying than Wind God." Hong Tailong shrank his head with a cautious expression. "I didn't ask you to go." Yu Qianzhou waved his hand and sneered, "I don't believe that emotion will stay in the demon realm to support Xin Yi every day. This time, I want to end the battle quickly with a sneak attack and catch him off guard. It would be best if I can kill San Yi. When Hong Tai Long saw his expression, he knew that this fellow's stupidity was starting to come out again. He reckoned that he would not be able to persuade him anymore. After frowning and pondering for a while, he carefully said, I won't stop your great undertaking of revenge, but, can you send me to the Netherworld Divine Palace first? If something happens to you, I can at least go to the Divine Realm and report to Coiling Dragon Ancestor. Maybe I can even avenge you. Jinx! Yu Qianqiu spat and ignored him. He thought to himself, if something happens to me, you better stay here obediently. At this moment, the 10 golden soul profound soldiers flew back from the camp. Their bodies were shining with golden light and they were clearly much bigger than before. One of the golden soul profound soldiers stretched out his arm and brought Jintai's golden cloud rod over. Yu Qianqiu took it and weighed it in his hand. After confirming that he could control it freely, he disappeared from the cliff alone. The 100 profound soldiers silently lined up in their original positions, waiting to be summoned at any time. In the demon realm, ever since Yu Qianqiu was defeated, the scattered armies of the 3 realms had nowhere to run and were inevitably brutally wiped out. Other than a small number of people who survived the endless humiliation, the hundreds of billions of people were almost completely wiped out. The smell of blood lingered in the air for a long time. Inside the demon palace, a naked man and woman were having sex on the blood jade throne. Madame Blackpool did her best to cater to Demon Lord 3 Knights, panting and moaning, her voice resounding. Outside the demon palace, Wu Feng and the others, who were controlled by the demon eye, were silently guarding the plaza. In the center of the plaza, tens of thousands of divine swords were still stabbed into the ground, as if waiting for their owners to come and retrieve them. Not far from the mountain range was a huge pit. It was the pit that Yu Qianqiu had smashed into when he was heavily injured. At this moment, Yu Qianqiu silently appeared inside again. He had once vomited a large amount of blood here, so it was not strange that he could teleport here. He peeked out half of his head to look at the demon palace on the other side of the mountain. He immediately saw Wu Feng and the others standing guard there. He immediately retracted his head and spat in his mind. As expected, those fellows had already been controlled by Demon King 3 Knights. Otherwise, they wouldn't be so dedicated to guarding the Demon King's home. Rolling his eyes, he quietly sunk into the ground again and rapidly opened up a space underground, summoning the 100 profound soldiers over. With a wave of his hand, the 80 Earth Soul profound soldiers immediately opened up a path underground. He, along with the 10 Gold Soul profound soldiers and 10 Fire Soul profound soldiers, followed behind and stealthily headed towards the demon palace. When they reached the bottom of the mountain, the group of people began to slowly ascend. They were probably close to the peak. Yu Qianqiu was afraid of alerting the enemy, so he had everyone slow down and slowly ascend bit by bit. When he saw the layer of stone slabs above them, Yu Qianqiu's face lit up with joy. He hurriedly had everyone stop. The golden swords that were exposed under the stone slabs were the divine swords. Just as his hand was about to touch one of the swords, he suddenly paused and pulled back. Strange. The divine swords are connected to my mind, so why can't I sense them when they are so close? Yu Qianqiu resisted the urge to touch them. Just as he was pondering over what was going on, he saw the black light that enveloped the stone slab like a huge net flash and then disappear. It was as if all the divine swords were trapped within it. Damn it! I was wondering why these swords were left here and no one cared about them. It was indeed a fishing trap. Fortunately, I crawled up from the ground. As he muttered, the net-like black light flashed again. Yu Qianqiu gritted his teeth with hatred. He didn't know how powerful the trap was, so he didn't dare to act rashly. He decided to temporarily give up on retrieving the divine swords. With a wave of his hand, the 100 mystic soldiers stealthily moved in all directions. In the demon palace, Madame Blackpool's enchanting voice echoed incessantly. The man and woman were still in a physical fight. Be it Wu Feng or Wang Qing, they were indifferent to it and dutifully checked the surroundings. Boom! The 100 mystic soldiers rushed out from the peak of the mountain at the same time. A portion of the mystic soldiers attacked the guards in the surroundings while another portion pounced towards the demon palace. Yu Qianzhou, who was at the front, enlarged his golden cloud rod and smashed it into the demon palace like a golden pillar that supported the heavens. The man and woman who were fighting to the death in the main hall were shocked. A giant golden pillar smashed through the roof and smashed towards them. Demon King 3 Knights didn't even think as he grabbed Madame Blackpool and threw her out to block the attack. Ah! The naked Madame Blackpool let out a miserable scream. With her cultivation, how could she block Yu Qianzhou's attack? She was smashed into meat paste on the spot. 16 late-stage Great God and 30 mid-stage Great God mystic soldiers pierced through the walls like they were made of paper. They charged in with almost instantaneous speed and attacked Demon King 3 Knights together. Demon King 3 Knights, who had a finger on his brow, looked at Yu Qianzhou charging in from the roof with a face full of disbelief. Never in his dreams would he have thought that Yu Qianzhou's injuries could recover so quickly. Even more so, he didn't think that this lunatic would take the initiative to attack even after knowing that he had the help of the demon god. Otherwise, he wouldn't be so unrestrained in his revelry. Little did he know that Yu Qianzhou didn't even know that the demon god's clone was still sealed in his body. He only thought that with his strength, he would be able to finish him off before the demon god appeared. If he knew that the demon god's clone was still sealed in his body, Yu Qianzhou wouldn't have dared to take the risk even if he had 10 guts. At this moment, 2 golden soul mystic soldiers' palms had already stabbed into Demon King 3 Knights' chest. Before blood could spurt out, the other mystic soldiers attacked valiantly. Seeing that Demon King 3 Knights was about to die in front of him, Yu Qianzhou raised his golden cloud rod like Sun Wukong and laughed sinisterly. He was prepared to charge forward and smash his rod for revenge. However, before he could smile, he couldn't smile anymore. At the same time that Demon King 3 Knights touched his brow, a ball of black light rapidly appeared and enveloped him. A terrifying and frightening aura surged out in all directions like a mountain that could topple a pillar. The 46 profound soldiers that surrounded the demon monarch of 3 Knights were sent flying with a loud bang. Yu Qianzhou was also sent flying with a mouthful of fresh blood. Boom! A deafening sound rang out. The earth shook and the mountains shook, causing the sky to change color. From afar, it looked as if the entire Devil Palace had fallen apart in an instant. The tall mountain that stood atop the Devil Palace was blown away like a pile of dust. The intense battle outside was like a leaf blown away by a gust of wind. Those with low cultivation were directly turned into dust, and those with cultivation below the level of a great god were all killed. Yu Qianzhou, who was sent flying, crashed into a small mountain. He staggered as he got up and swayed. Everything in front of him was swaying, and his mind was blank. The golden cloud rod in his hand was nowhere to be seen. Blood seeped out of his eyes, nose, lips, and ears. It could be said that he was bleeding from all 7 orifices. He shook his head violently and looked at the mountain that had been turned into dust in front of him with a face full of fear. The naked Demon King 3 Knights floated in the air and looked down at his cracked chest. He didn't know where his heart was. Damn it! The demon god's clone is actually in 3 Knights' body. Yu Qianzhou, who had woken up, finally figured out what was going on. He was so frightened that he shivered. He looked around and gave another order to those Xian soldiers who were recklessly getting up and continuing to attack Demon King 3 Knights. Run! He didn't have the time to gather them and bring them back. Those Xian soldiers immediately turned and fled. Demon King 3 Knights didn't seem to be interested in the escaping Xian soldiers. He looked around coldly and locked onto Yu Qianzhou. Yu Qianzhou's expression twitched. If he didn't escape now, then when would he? He instantly disappeared. Demon King Three Knight's eyes were filled with anger as his deafening voice resounded through the sky. How dare you attack the body that I possess? Pay with your life. A black light flashed out of Demon King Three Knight's body and shot into the sky, disappearing into the blue dome of heaven. Demon Monarch Three Knight's body powerlessly fell from the sky, smashing into the dust and becoming a bloody mess. The people of the Devil Realm that had rushed over from all directions were dumbfounded, and flew over in fear. Chapter 1230. Yu Qianzhou, who had fled back to Utopia in a panic, sat down on a cliff. When Hong Tai-long saw how he was bleeding from his 7 orifices, he immediately jumped up in shock. Where's the dark weapon you brought? Did you encounter a demonic god again? Yu Qianzhou nodded. He quickly inspected his injuries and found that even though the commotion from earlier was quite frightening, it was much better than his previous injuries. It was just that he had been badly frightened, to the point that his legs were a little weak. I told you, but you didn't listen. Now look at you. You're just asking for trouble. Hong Tai-long furrowed his brows and reprimanded him. Finally, he sighed and said, It's a blessing and the misfortune that you managed to escape alive again. It's good that you're alive. Before he could finish his sentence, their expressions changed at the same time. The atmosphere in Utopia instantly became abnormally heavy, as though something terrifying was staring at them. The two of them slowly raised their heads and looked up into the sky. A pair of dreamlike gigantic demonic eyes appeared high up in the sky and locked onto the ground below. This wasn't the first time he had seen this pair of eyes. Yu Qianzhou was all too familiar with them. He didn't expect them to track them all the way to Utopia. He was almost scared out of his wits. Hong Tai-long was also dumbfounded. With such an oppressive aura descending from the sky, as long as he wasn't a fool, he would be able to guess whose eyes those belonged to. He swallowed his saliva with difficulty and said, It's a demonic god. Everyone in the ethereal palace came out in shock and looked at the sky in horror. Many people didn't know what was going on, and it wasn't the first time they had seen it. For example, Nongzhu had seen it back in Spirit Fong Valley. Yu Qianzhou's pupils contracted. He immediately realized that a demonic god wouldn't appear here for no reason. His heart trembled, and he immediately cried out to the people who had come out of Ethereal Palace, It's a demonic god. Let's go. Nongzhu also shouted to everyone with a pale face, Everyone, disperse. Rumble. A muffled sound rang out in the sky, causing the sky to change color. A crack in the void suddenly appeared in the sky, and a hideous demonic claw with monstrous demonic chi stretched out from the crack, stirring up waves of wind and thunder, and slammed down. Yu Qianzhou's eyes widened. He could not save everyone in time. Biting his lip, he disappeared with Hong Tai-long. Boom! A loud sound rang out, as if the heavens were falling and the earth was splitting apart. The ethereal palace, along with the entire mountain, was smashed into smithereens. Monstrous demonic chi swept out in all directions like demonic dragons, sweeping through everything in its path. The people who had already fled far away were all sent flying by the shocking demonic chi. Fortunately, the Fiend Celestial didn't care about these small fries and disdained to chase after them. After that attack, the Fiend Celestial quickly withdrew its devilish claw into the spatial rift, and the spatial rift flickered with a few bolts of lightning before vanishing. The place where the Fiend Celestial Palace was hit by the Fiend Celestial Palace was a few thousand meters deep, and the terrain within a radius of 100 miles was like a cauldron. In the center of the cauldron, red-hot underground lava was surging out, and black smoke billowed into the sky. Many people were struggling in the cauldron, and it was obvious that they were heavily injured. There were even more people lying on the ground, motionless, and some of their corpses could not even be seen. Godfather. Bai Suzhen knelt on the ground, hugging Wei Chuanqiu, and cried out anxiously. Her white clothes were stained with blood. Yan Yu, who crawled up from the dust on the ground, cried out, "Senior Wei," and rushed over to hug him, crying. Wei Chuanqiu's lower body could no longer be found. Her eyes were wide open in anger, but her eyeballs were motionless. Senior Yun. Hibiscus and Beauty of 100 Charms hugged Yunpeng, who was coughing out blood, anxiously. Yunpeng laughed bitterly, and looked around at the women. He coughed out a mouthful of blood, and smiled stiffly. "It's good that you are all fine. I've repaid you Chincho's favor. I don't owe him anything anymore." His head tilted to the side, and there was no more movement. Foster father. Senior Wei. Senior Yun. The few women cried in panic and confusion. In order to protect Yu Qianqiu's women, Wei Chuanqiu and Yunpeng used all their cultivation to block the remaining power of the Fiend Celestial's attack. They did not expect the Fiend Celestial to be so terrifying. They had run so far away, but they could not withstand the remaining power of the Fiend Celestial's attack. Brother Crocodile. Brother Crocodile. On the other side, Ji Wu was hugging Immortal Lord Crocodile's head, tears streaming down her face. She dragged Immortal Lord Crocodile as she fled, but at the critical moment, Immortal Lord Crocodile actually blocked the remaining power of the Fiend Celestial Lord Crocodile for her. However, he still could not block it. Under the attack, only his head was left, and the lower half of Ji Wu's body could not be found. It was a bloody mess, and her crying gradually weakened. Finally, she fell to the ground, still hugging Immortal Lord Crocodile's head. The beauty of a generation that could topple a nation was gone just like that. Father. Mother, Zi, who had always been angry with Jade Flower Fairy and Nongzhu, finally called out. Her clothes were tattered, and she crawled on the ground, looking for them. However, she would never have the chance to see them again. Although Nongzhu had always been at odds with Jade Flower Fairy, she still wanted to protect the mother and daughter at the critical moment. But at the most dangerous moment, the husband and wife resolutely put protecting their daughter first. However, their cultivation was not enough to resist the remaining power of the Fiend Celestial. Under the Fiend Celestial Lord Crocodile's attack, they turned into ashes. Even though they had blocked the attack for their daughter, Zi was still seriously injured. Blood flowed from the corner of her mouth. A huge river clam jumped out of the dust. After a flash of light, Shen Yu appeared. He shook his head dizzily, and he could not stand steadily. At the critical moment, he revealed his true form to protect himself. The shell of the river clam actually blocked the attack of the Fiend Celestial for him, and he was unharmed. It was a miracle. In the distance, Wu Lishue flew over with a group of people. When he saw the scene in front of him, he was stunned. The Wu family was lucky. Wu Lishue wanted to bring his family around Utopia, so he asked Guan Yu, who was familiar with this place, to guide them. However, they did not expect to avoid a disaster because of this. After realizing that something was wrong, they rushed over, but they did not expect this to happen. When Guan Yu saw Bai Suzhen, who was covered in blood, he immediately rushed over to support her. He asked anxiously, "Sister Bai, are you okay?" With Wu Sihai's command, the Wu family immediately scattered and rushed over to help the injured. Yu Qianqiu, who had escaped to the immortal world with Hong Tailong, did not even have time to catch his breath. Another crack in the void appeared high in the sky, and the Fiend Celestial Claw attacked again. Fiend Celestial, F***ck your ancestors. Yu Qianqiu cursed angrily and disappeared with Hong Tailong. He turned to Utopia, and directly appeared on the island where Lu Yanqing and Wen Lanfeng lived in seclusion. Lu Yanqing and Wen Lanfeng were also frightened by the shocking movement in the distance. The two stood at the highest point of the island and looked into the distance. Lu Yanqing. Quickly go to the Misty Palace to save them, quickly. Yu Qianqiu hurriedly said. He did not dare to stay for too long, afraid that he would bring disaster to Utopia again. He disappeared in an instant. Lu Yanqing's expression froze. She said to Wen Lanfeng, who had lost all his cultivation, "Wait for me here. I'll go take a look." In the Fiend Celestial world, Yu Qianqiu appeared in the direction of the Fiend Celestial Palace with Hong Tailong, who was still in shock. At this moment, a group of Fiend Celestials were kneeling in front of Demon Monarch 3 Knight's corpse, looking very sad. Yu Qianqiu's appearance gave them a fright. No one thought that they were his match. They immediately hugged Demon Monarch 3 Knight's corpse and fled in panic. Yu Qianqiu was not in the mood to settle the score with them. He was just temporarily taking refuge. After seeing Demon Monarch 3 Knight's corpse, Hong Tailong said in shock, "You killed Demon Monarch 3 Knights." "Should be." Yu Qianqiu nodded and admitted. Then, he was startled. He sensed that the 10,000 divine swords were buried below. At this moment, the array that sealed the 10,000 divine swords had been destroyed by the demonic god himself. He could naturally sense it. Yu Qianqiu waved his hand, and 10,000 golden rays shot out from the ground. The 10,000 swords returned to one and returned to his hand. However, just as he grabbed it, there was another muffled rumble in the air. That pitch-black and malevolent demonic claw stretched out like a devil. The two of them cried out and fled again. They quickly turned to Utopia and appeared in the Netherworld world. Hong Tailong trembled as he looked around and said, "It's over. The demonic god has his eyes on you. Let's go our separate ways. It's too dangerous to follow you." Just as he finished speaking, another spatial crack tore open in the sky. Hong Tailong immediately grabbed Yu Qianqiu's arm and exclaimed, "Don't leave me behind. Take me with you and escape." In the divine illusionary realm, a majestic lion with a pair of colorful wings spread its wings and landed at the place where the massacre had occurred. On his head stood Wu Lishue's pheasant phoenix. Oh! Oh my God! The pheasant phoenix covered its eyes with its wings and looked at the scene of devastation. It shook its head and exclaimed in a childish female voice, "What exactly happened? Sister Shui, where's Sister Shui? Yu Qianqiu, we can't possibly hide like this for the rest of our lives. If this goes on, the demonic god will be even more annoyed that he can't catch us. When that happens, we might not be able to escape. I have an idea. Let's go to the Netherworld Divine Abode. I'll open a passage to the Divine Realm and take refuge there." A voice suddenly sounded from behind the hill in front of them. The rainbow-feathered Lion King was stunned, but the pheasant phoenix on its head jumped and cheered, old dragon, it's me, is it you?" Hearing this, the rainbow-feathered Lion King immediately flashed to the top of the hill and looked down at the two of them. At the bottom of the hill, Yu Qianqiu and Hong Tailong looked back at the same time. When they saw each other clearly, they were stunned. Yu Qianqiu said in surprise, "Pheasant, you're not dead yet. You're the one who's dead." The pheasant snorted unhappily, seemingly admitting that it was a pheasant. It then asked, "Bad guy, what happened here?" Yu Qianqiu was not in the mood to chat with it. He vigilantly looked around the sky, ready to avoid the demonic god's pursuit at any time. However, what surprised him was that the demonic god didn't seem to be able to find a place for them to hide. Chapter 1231. The Divine Realm, the original Light Palace, and now the Demon Domain. Above the towering cliff shrouded in demonic clouds, a lonely figure was facing the never-ending wind above the ninth heaven. His stalwart body was motionless, only the black waistcoat wrapped around his body was fluttering in the wind. His long hair was fluttering, and his diamond-like eyes were flashing with anger. A cultivator of the late stage of the great god realm had repeatedly escaped from his hands, which really made him angry. Standing on the edge of the cliff, he gently took a step into the void. It seemed to be a casual step, but he had crossed thousands of miles. In the blink of an eye, he was already in the endless stars of the universe. The vast sea of stars for him was like a leisurely stroll. Just as he was about to take another step, suddenly there were two groups of light and shadows in front of him. A golden dragon of thousands of feet long drilled out of the void, roaming among the endless stars. As the golden scales opened and closed, a majestic dragon breath spread into the depths of the endless universe. A phoenix of thousands of feet long flew out of the void, dragging a long colorful tail, flapping its wings and flying in the brilliant starry sky. An ancient and sacred aura flowed back and forth along with the colorful halos around its body. Roar! The divine dragon roared in the starry sky, meandering over, winding and coiling together. The majestic dragon head stood with its chest out, looking majestically at the man wrapped in a black waistcoat below. Clang clang! The colorful phoenix issued a sonorous ancient sound in the starry sky, swaying and swaying, looking at the man wrapped in a black waistcoat with a noble and auspicious expression. In front of these two ancient beasts, the stalwart body of demon god Night was as small as an ant in this vast starry sky. He looked at the two ancient beasts in front of him and snorted coldly, "Coiling dragon, phoenix, are you two a match for me?" The two beasts shone with a magnificent light, more and more dazzling, making people not dare to look directly at them, but demon god Night ignored them. The strong light suddenly disappeared, and a strong man with a bare upper body wearing a pair of knee-length yellow shorts appeared. His muscles were full and strong like stones, his skin was bronze, his eyes were bright and full of expression, and his whole body was covered with a faint golden glow. A plump woman in a long dress stood in the starry sky, her clothes indescribably gorgeous, her beauty so noble that all women in the world felt ashamed of their inferiority. Her beautiful eyes were full of spirit, and her body was covered with a faint layer of sacred light. This man and woman were the legendary ancient god Coiling Dragon and ancient god Phoenix. "Nate, what, do you want to fight us?" The noble ancient Phoenix god smiled faintly. Her voice was so beautiful that nothing in the world could compare to it. It was as if her voice alone could dissolve all hostility in the world. "Demon god," Yi snorted coldly, "didn't the two of you rush here to stop me?" Ancient god Coiling Dragon shook his head and sighed, "Knight, we are only here to remind you that your bet with Tao isn't far away. Do you really want to break the agreement between the two of you?" Demon god Knight shook his head and sighed, "Knight, we are only here to remind you that your bet with Tao is not far away. Do you really want to break the agreement between you two?" The diamond light in demon god Knight's eyes brightened. He stared at ancient god Coiling Dragon and slowly said, "Do we still need to gamble? Tao is looking down on me too much by finding such a person to fight me. Anyone can see that it's impossible for him to be a match for me. Instead of wasting time, it's better for me to finish him off now. Why should I drag it on? Tao found such a person to fight with me. He is underestimating me too much. Anyone can see that he is not my match. Instead of wasting time, I might as well finish him off now." Demon god Knight said disdainfully, "Tao's star bead, Nuwa's great art of 5 elements, Yi's heaven and earth splitting arrow, all gathered on one person. If I can't see such an obvious thing, wouldn't I be a fool?" Demon god Knight's tone was full of disdain. "Tao's star bead, Nuwa's 5 elements grand technique, and Yi's heaven and earth splitting arrow are all concentrated on one person. Wouldn't I be a fool if I couldn't see such an obvious thing? Tao spared no effort in order to raise someone who can defeat me. Of all the people he could have chosen, he just had to choose a useless brat. Even if his 5 elements grand technique can devour the water god, even if he cultivates for another 10,000 years, he will still not be my match." Ancient Phoenix chimed in, "Knight, if you really want to revive dark, you should wait a little longer. The day of the final battle is not far away. Of course, if you don't want to revive Dark, we have nothing to say and won't stop you." The man and woman stepped aside at the same time, opening up the path to the boundless and mysterious stars. Demon God Knight remained silent for a long time. His gaze swept across the two's faces before he snorted and disappeared. The man and woman looked at each other and smiled. Then, they shook their heads and sighed, quietly disappearing into the stars. Divine Illusionary Realm. So this guy was the rainbow-feathered Lion King that guarded the Divine Illusionary Realm. Yu Qianqiu carefully sized up the winged lion and realized that it was only at the early stage of small god. No wonder it wasn't Jin Tai's match. He didn't have much time to think about other things. He nodded, "It's an honor to meet you." The rainbow-feathered Lion King's gaze turned cold. He could tell that Yu Qianqiu and Hong Tailong's cultivation were higher than his. Ah! Pheasant suddenly thought of something and exclaimed, "Bad guy. Demon God is chasing you. Is Sister Shui alright?" Yu Qianqiu closed his eyes, and the tragic scene in Utopia appeared in his mind. After opening his eyes, he shook his head slightly and said, "She's fine." When the pheasant heard that, it patted its chest with its wings and seemed to heave a sigh of relief. Phoenix Divine Temple. Hong Tailong muttered to himself repeatedly. Suddenly, his eyes lit up as he said, "Little Phoenix, is the Phoenix Divine Temple that the great Phoenix God built in the Divine Void Realm still there?" "It is. I've already found it," Pheasant said excitedly. Suddenly, he said with vigilance, "Bad Hong Tailong, are you planning something?" He had long felt that this dragon and bad guys were birds of a feather, and he was the scum of the dragon race. Hong Tailong didn't answer him. Instead, he pulled Yu Qianqiu excitedly and said, "Yu Qianqiu, we don't need to hide anymore. The Phoenix Temple is the place where the Phoenix God cultivated in seclusion. As long as we hide in the Phoenix Temple, unless the demon god comes personally, he might not be able to break through the temple's protective restriction. Let's quickly hide in the Phoenix Temple." The rainbow-feathered Lion King suddenly said, "The temple is protected by a restriction. We can't enter. Even little Phoenix couldn't enter after trying for a long time. Only with the protection of the Phoenix Cloud Robe can we enter safely." Pheasant nodded repeatedly like a chick pecking rice. "Yes. Only Sister Shui can enter." "Ah." Hong Tailong was startled. "Little Phoenix, you're saying that heartless girl Wu Lixue has the Phoenix Cloud Robe? You're the heartless one, afraid of death, the scum of the dragon race," Pheasant said with disdain. Hong Tailong straightened his neck and explained, "Little Phoenix, children shouldn't speak nonsense if they don't know anything. How can this be called being afraid of death? This is called, where there's life, there's hope. Besides, I'm also thinking about your sister Shui's safety. Do you understand?" Yu Qianqiu only roughly listened to their conversation. His attention was still on the surroundings. After a while, he didn't notice any movement. He couldn't help but ask curiously, "What's going on? Could it be that the demon god can't detect that we've entered the divine illusionary realm, or has he given up on killing us? Why hasn't there been any movement until now?" When he said this, Hong Tailong also came back to his senses. He looked around and said curiously, "That's right. It's been a long time. What's going on? Wait for me here. I'll go out and take a look." Yu Qianqiu said and disappeared on the spot. After quickly passing through Utopia, he appeared in the immortal world again. Chapter 1232. Bai Suzhen, dressed in a blood-stained white dress, slowly walked up to him. She leaned her cheek on his shoulder and said in a low voice, "Take me to the Blue Sea Deathly Realm." Her tone was indifferent but extremely determined. Yu Qianqiu turned around with one arm around the crying hibiscus. Looking at Bai Suzhen's emotionless face, he knew that she wanted to use the blue sea essence to refine her body and quickly improve her cultivation. She hoped that one day, she could take revenge on the demon god. Of course, he could totally refuse to take her there, but how could he refuse under such circumstances? He had caused such a huge disaster and even caused the death of her adoptive father. How could he refuse? All right. Yu Qianqiu, who had been silent for a long time, uttered these two words. He patted Hibiscus's back lightly and let go of her. Holding Bai Suzhen's hand, they disappeared together. The two of them appeared on the island of the Blue Sea Deathly Realm. Holding hands, they quietly looked at the deadly light pillars that shot into the sky from time to time. Bai Suzhen wanted to let go of his hand and dive into the sea, but Yu Qianqiu held her hand tightly. He shook his head and smiled bitterly. I'll go with you. A bubble wrapped around the two of them as they dove into the deep blue sea. When they reached the bottom of the sea, they did not find the blue sea gold essence. Instead, they saw the deadly light pillars that shot out from the bottom of the sea. Yu Qianqiu performed the water spell and pointed at them. An undercurrent immediately appeared in the water and swept away the sand that covered the bottom of the sea. The moment the sand at the bottom of the sea was swept away, a translucent metal that looked like a blue crystal gradually appeared in front of them. The blue radiance that blossomed from it dyed the underwater world a bright and snowy blue. It made them feel as if they were in a blue fairy tale world. Yu Qianqiu waved his hand anxiously, and the undercurrent in the water uncovered a blue translucent metal that was almost a kilometer in circumference. Its surface was bumpy and uneven, and some parts were even protruding. A majestic aura that made one's mind sway as if they were in a dream. And this was just the tip of the iceberg of the blue transparent metal. If all the silt at the bottom of the sea was removed, who knew how big this strange meteorite would be? On the surface of the blue transparent metal, there were blue streams of lightning-like flowing light. Whenever two streams of flowing light collided, they would immediately erupt into a fatal blue beam of light that shot towards the surface of the sea. According to the records of the Myriad Demon Heart Sutra, that should be the essence of the blue sea. Bai Suzhen pointed to a place. Yu Qianqiu looked over and saw that there was a groove on the surface of the blue transparent metal. There was a pool of blue liquid quietly swimming in it. It was beautiful and dazzling, shining with blue and gorgeous colors. Just one more look at it would be able to pull one's mind into it and make one drunk for a long time. The strange thing was that this magnificent blue liquid was clearly in the sea, but it did not merge with the seawater. The blue flowing light on the surface of the transparent blue metal came from that liquid. It seemed to be the source of the blue flowing light. I think we should give up. It's too dangerous. Yu Qianqiu could not help but advise her. His face was very solemn. He was very clear about the power of the fatal beam of light, and this blue sea essence was the source of the fatal beam of light. It was too terrifying to try it with one's flesh and blood. What happened to Wen Lanfeng and Yan Zhuixing was a warning. He really did not want Bai Suzhen to become like them. It'll be fine. The experience of the Myriad Demon Heart Sutra can be used as a reference. I will be careful. Bai Suzhen smiled and broke away from her hand. Seeing the worried look on Yu Qianqiu's face, she suddenly stretched out her arms and wrapped them around Yu Qianqiu's neck. Her soft lips were intertwined with his. It was the first time that Yu Qianqiu saw her take the initiative. He could not help but put his hands around her waist and caressed her pert buttocks. His tongue opened her teeth, and it was hard to separate them. In this blue underwater world, a man and a woman in a bubble were getting more and more aroused. The man couldn't hold himself back anymore, and his hands started to touch everywhere. Just as he was about to touch the forbidden area, the woman's body trembled, and she stopped him with her arms, not letting him continue. She shook her head, as if saying that now wasn't the time. Yu Qianqiu was speechless. Bai Suzhen, on the other hand, left the bubble with a bashful expression. She resolutely flew towards the beautiful and enchanting pool of blue liquid. As she floated above, she looked at Yu Qianqiu with a gentle smile, bit her lip, and slowly descended. As soon as her feet came into contact with the blue liquid, strands of blue light quickly spread across her body. A pained expression appeared on Bai Suzhen's face. Yu Qianqiu was shocked. He quickly dodged and said anxiously, "How are you? If you can't, don't try." "I'm fine." Bai Suzhen shook her head and replied. She clenched her teeth and continued to sink down. However, her entire body was trembling uncontrollably. It was obvious that she was suffering from indescribable pain and torture. With a slight tilt, her entire body submerged into the magnificent blue liquid. Seeing her like that, Yu Qianqiu was as anxious as an ant on a hot pan. Finally, he steeled his heart and decided to go down and give it a try. If he found that he couldn't bear it anymore, he would immediately take Bai Suzhen away by force. Chapter 1233. After bringing the overjoyed Wu Lixue to the divine illusionary realm, Hong Tailong, Pheasant, and the rainbow-feathered Lion King were still waiting for him. Naturally, Wu Lixue and Pheasant hugged and cried out in joy. Hong Tailong approached Yu Qianqiu and asked about the demon god. After learning that the demon god was no longer looking for trouble, Hong Tailong heaved a sigh of relief. "I just don't know if the demon god is not looking for trouble for the time being or if he will come again in the future. How can we live in fear every day?" After Hong Tailong sighed, his eyes suddenly lit up. He elbowed Yu Qianqiu and said, "Oh right, how is your mission to administer punishment on behalf of the heavens? If it's almost done, we might as well seek refuge in the divine realm. With the protection of Coiling Dragon Ancestor at the Divine Dragon Mountain, the demon god may not be able to find us." Yu Qianqiu was speechless. He thought to himself, how the hell do I know what's up with administering punishment on behalf of the heavens? If not for Hong Tailong's reminder, he would have forgotten about it. He had told so many lies that even he almost believed them. Previously, when he was being chased by the demon god, he indeed wanted to seek refuge in the divine realm. However, after Hong Tailong's reminder, he remembered that the Netherworld Divine Manor's passage to the divine realm led directly to the Dragon Clan's Divine Dragon Mountain. When he thought that he would have to face Coiling Dragon Ancestor, he did not dare to go even if he was beaten to death. He coughed dryly and sighed with a face full of melancholy. If it's just to seek refuge, hiding in the all-heavens boundary is the best place. However, the key is that I am not resigned to it. I want to seek revenge on the demon god. Yes. I also think that the all-heavens boundary is a good place to seek refuge. However, the key is that you provoked the wind god. If we go there, aren't we courting death? Hong Tailong sneered disdainfully. Seek revenge on the demon god. So many peak experts in the divine realm can't do anything to the demon god. Do you think you can get revenge? I think we should hide first. Sigh. The ultimate mission of administering punishment on behalf of the heavens is to eradicate the demon god. Yu Qianqiu said solemnly as he looked at Hong Tailong. Ah. Hong Tailong's mouth was agape as his expression stiffened. The muscles on his face twitched violently twice. Then, he revealed a smile that was uglier than a crying face as he cried out in grief, "It can't be. Are you kidding me? Why would you accept such an impossible task? You think I want to?" Yu Qianqiu rolled his eyes and continued to bluff, "Do you think I can refuse? It's over, it's all over." Hong Tailong sighed as he shook his head. He had lost all his spirit in an instant. The blow he had received was too great. Wu Lixue, Pheasant, and the rainbow-feathered Lion King were speechless when they heard that Yu Qianqiu had such a great mission. It's not like there's no way to deal with the demon god. The rainbow-feathered Lion King, who had been silent all this while, suddenly said something shocking. What is it? The few of them looked at him in unison. The rainbow-feathered lion Wang Xiongjin walked around a few times. There was some hesitation in his eyes, as if he didn't know whether he should say it or not. Pheasant immediately lost his patience. He stood on Wu Lishua's shoulder and shouted, "Lion King, just say it." Seeing that Pheasant had spoken, the rainbow-feathered Lion King nodded his head and slowly said, "I don't know if you've heard of the great god Yi's heaven and earth splitting arrow and the supreme divine bow." The few of them looked at him expectantly or nodded repeatedly, waiting for him to continue. Back then, the great god Yi and the war god Rui both died after an unprecedented battle. The supreme divine bow left behind by the great god Yi was personally sealed by the ancient phoenix god. If we can find the supreme divine bow and the heaven and earth splitting arrow, we might be able to kill the demon god. However, the 9 heaven and earth splitting arrows have already been shot to 9 other spacetimes. I'm afraid it's impossible to find them. The rainbow-feathered Lion King said apologetically to the few of them, without a great cultivation that can travel through spacetime, it's impossible to find the 9 heaven and earth splitting arrows. If the divine arrows can't be combined with the divine bow, they won't be able to unleash their formidable power. I'm just speaking thoughtlessly, don't take it seriously. Wu Lishue, Pheasant, and Hong Tai Long's gazes all turned to Yu Qianqiu. The 3 of them knew that this guy just happened to have something that couldn't be found. Yu Qianqiu's face was indescribably pleasantly surprised. He quickly took out the divine arrow and said cheerfully, "Sorry, I just happened to have a heaven and earth splitting arrow in my hand." This time, it was the rainbow-feathered Lion King's turn to be surprised. With a flash of light, he turned into a tall and sturdy man. He reached out to grab the divine arrow in Yu Qianqiu's hand to verify its authenticity. In the end, he found that it was unimaginably heavy. He had to spend a lot of cultivation to pick it up. There was no need to verify its authenticity. He cried out in surprise, "Is this really the heaven and earth splitting arrow? How did it fall into your hands? What's real can't be fake, and what's fake can't be real." Yu Qianqiu reached out to grab the divine arrow back. His eyes lit up, and he said, "Lion King. From what you said just now, the supreme godly bow was personally sealed by the ancient phoenix god, and you're the descendant of the Phoenix Temple's guardian god. Could it be that you know the whereabouts of the heaven and earth splitting arrow? To be more precise, could it be that the supreme godly bow is sealed in the Phoenix Temple?" The others also became excited, and their eyes were filled with anticipation. The rainbow-feathered Lion King looked at the divine arrow in Yu Qianqiu's hand and exclaimed, "I don't know where the supreme godly bow is sealed, but according to legend, the Phoenix Temple is indeed related to the place where the supreme godly bow is sealed. It's said that whoever can decipher the Phoenix Temple's secret will be able to find the supreme godly bow. However, the Phoenix Temple is protected by a powerful restriction. Ordinary people can't enter at all. Only those who have a great destiny with the Phoenix clan can enter." Speaking up to here, his gaze looked towards Wu Lishue. Yu Qianqiu, Hong Tai Long, and Pheasant also looked towards her. Wu Lishue looked at herself up and down with a blank expression. Puzzled, she said, "Why are you all looking at me? This heartless girl, the person who has a great destiny with the Phoenix clan is you." Hong Tailong's old face turned into a chrysanthemum flower as he clapped his hands and chuckled non-stop. "I knew it. How could old ancestor Coiling Dragon hand over an impossible task to me? No wonder he asked me to bring the heaven and earth splitting arrow down here. No wonder he asked you, Yu Qianqiu, to complete the task. It turns out that this is the trump card to deal with the demon god. I say, why is everyone still in a daze? Let's go. Let's go to the Phoenix Temple." Everything was ready, only the east wind was left. The group no longer hesitated. Yu Qianzhou's cultivation was the highest, so he immediately took out the flying shuttle and carried them away. The rainbow-feathered Lion King showed him the way. A day later, the flying shuttle stopped at the peak of a towering mountain. The mountain was surrounded by mountains and seas of clouds. The scenery was enchanting, and all kinds of birds were flying around the mountain, chirping. The peak of the mountain was paved with pure white jade, and there was a white jade platform that faced the cliff. Below the platform was a jade tablet with the 3 words Phoenix Stage carved on it. Under the sunlight, it was dazzling, making people feel as if they were in a dream. The rainbow-feathered Lion King pointed at the white jade platform and said, "The Phoenix Temple is up there. Everyone, please follow me." He took the lead and climbed up the jade stairs. Step by step, he walked up with a devout expression. Yu Qianzhou and the others looked around and were speechless. They didn't see any trace of the temple. Only the pheasant stood on Wu Lishua's shoulder and excitedly said, "Sister Shuai, just follow the Lion King." Wu Lishua nodded and followed the rainbow-feathered Lion King up the jade stairs. Yu Qianzhou and Hong Tai Long looked at each other, then followed behind Wu Lishua. After everyone stepped on the platform, the rainbow-feathered Lion King bowed slightly to the pheasant on Wu Lishua's shoulder. The pheasant immediately flapped its wings and flew up, making loud clanging sounds towards the empty sky. With the phoenix's cry, all the flying birds in the surroundings landed on the ground and bowed, as if they were on a pilgrimage. Wherever the pheasant sound waves reached, transparent ripples would appear in the void, and an image gradually appeared in the sea of clouds. A grand palace wrapped in a golden transparent ball of light appeared in the sky. The entire palace was made of pure white jade, and on the surface of the ball of light, there were many golden phoenixes dancing in the air. It was so beautiful that it was hard to look at them. Suddenly, a jade staircase appeared, connecting the palace in the air and the platform under everyone's feet. The few people who came here for the first time found it hard to believe. They clearly saw many flying birds circling around the palace, but they didn't see anything that could stop them from flying. They didn't expect a palace to be hidden in the air. This was obviously not an illusion, and they couldn't help but feel amazed. The rainbow-feathered Lion King continued to step on the staircase, leading the way. The few people also followed behind him. The staircase under their feet was real, and it was indeed not an illusion. When they reached the top of the staircase, they could already see the vast square of the temple. It was pure white, solemn and sacred, and there were 2 huge jade phoenixes on the left and right, looking down at everyone on the staircase. However, everyone was blocked by a golden transparent light screen, and they couldn't take another step forward. The rainbow-feathered Lion King walked to the side and made way for Wu Lishua to enter. Wu Lishua was at a loss and didn't know what to do. The pheasant on her shoulder giggled and said, "Sister Shuai, whether we can enter the temple or not depends on you. Quickly put on your phoenix cloud robe and bring us in." Wu Lishua looked back at Yu Qianzhou and smiled bitterly, "Phoenix cloud robe? I don't know how to put it on." Yu Qianzhou frowned. He knew that Wu Lishua did have a phoenix cloud robe in her body, but it seemed like Wu Lishua didn't know how to use it. He walked forward and tried to touch the golden transparent light screen. He found that there was a strong resistance, but there was no danger. He immediately took a few steps back and smiled at Wu Lishua. "It's okay, you can try and see if you can enter. If you really can't, then forget it." "Okay." Wu Lishua nodded obediently and walked forward. She bit her lips and reached out to touch the golden light screen. The moment her finger touched the light screen, Wu Lishua's body let out a slight buzzing noise. Abruptly, his body glowed with a splendid light, then shrunk. Next, a dreamy, nebula-like, 7-colored cloak covered Wu Lishua's body. An ancient sense of power was released from Wulishua's body along with that pair of faintly discernible starry wings. You're tuning in to the LoveLore Library YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.